Welcome everyone. I'm Lottie, your local magical girl with a slight gotcha addiction. Just a slight gotcha addiction. I hope everyone is doing well today. Hi B! Welcome! It's going really great today. We're going to continue with Hakuoki, Okita's route. Now, we are starting with chapter 3. The end of chapter 2, Okita legit bullied a child, and it was the funniest thing ever. Like, we sat there and let kids bully us, and then he bullied the kids back. So that's the man I want, a man who can stand up for himself. So we're gonna go right ahead and continue on with Okita's story. The dawn of the new year arrived, so it's technically been a year since we joined the Shinsengumi then, right? It was February of 1865, and we finished eating breakfast. I was carrying a plate full of tea and opened the door to the common room. Tea's ready. I made my way around the room, pouring a cup of tea for each person there, making sure not to spill. He gave me a warm smile as I handed him his tea. Thank you. I felt a flush of pride at his words, even though I knew quite well that serving tea was hardly impressive. Just the same, I felt as if I was helping out in a way, and that was a nice feeling. Then Hijikata spoke, and his words brought me back to the present. Are we moving to another compound? Not the children. Okita wouldn't though. It was so hilarious. Those kids were bad-mouthing the whole Shinsengumi and then Kondo-san. And then like Okita just lifted one child up like the airplane game. And then he was like, the kid was like, you know, you can let me down, Okita. Okita's like, what? But I thought you liked this game. And then he had this sadistic smile on his face. It was because the kids badmouthed Kondo. Like, he didn't care about the rest of the Shinsengumi. It's because they badmouthed Kondo. And Kondo's like the nicest guy out of the whole group. He's like a dad.
広いところに移れるんならそれがいいんだけどな。雑魚寝してる連中かなり辛そうだしよ。だな。前川邸で寝起きしてる連中なんて毎晩押し寿司みてえになりながら寝てやがるぜ。あれじゃ疲れが取れねえだろうし、なんとかしてやりてえよな。
So we do need a new place. I don't think we can expand the Yagi residence, can we? That'll be some construction, so maybe half of us will move over to a different place nearby. Oh, right. They don't technically own this place. They're basically staying here. A person sitting beside Kondo pointed at the map spread upon the table. Another guy? They just keep on introducing so many guys in this damn game. I think there's like 12 maybe different guys you can romance in this game. They have lots of love interests. Takeda is so pretty. Just look at his hair. I like how they have like the curly hair, but then like the side pieces are all nice and straight. It's a nice contrast.
数百人の大使が寝起きできるほど広い場所なんて他にないでしょ。それにあの場所ならいざという時も動きやすいと思うのだけど。
Kondo is the dad for sure, and his gaggle of children always follow. Right? I would literally follow Kondo to my death for this man, to protect him. This man was named Kashitaro Ito, recruited by Heisuke a few months ago as the Shinsengumi's military advisor and deputy commander. He developed his notoriety teaching Hokoshin Ito in his dojo, and he is known for his scholarness.
それに西本願寺は以前長州浪士をかくまっていたこともあると聞きますわ。
Oh, okay.
我々が西本願寺に移れば、浪士たちは身を隠す場所を一つ失うことになります。
There's Kondo! That's the dad of the group. We all love Kondo in this channel. If you do not, I'd kindly ask you to leave. Kondo is so nice to all of us. Even when he found out we were a girl, he felt bad that they all treated us kind of roughly. Kondo seemed very impressed by Ito's suggestion, but a silent voice of protest arose.
僧侶の動きを武力で押さえつけるのはいかがなものかと思います。
Sanan! We pray for Sanan. My man's injured and can't really hold a sword ever again, so he's all angry now. He's all angry and cold towards people. Ito's brow twitched, as if disturbed by the idea, and he faced Sanan directly.
自社を隠れ蓑にして好き勝手な振る舞いをしていたのは長州浪士の方ではなくて、今日の治安を乱す不定浪士に配慮して差し上げるなんて、三男さんもお優しいこと。
Rivalry already? Ito's deflection of Sanan's word left a bitter taste in everyone's mouth, including Sanan.
尊上過激派を抑える必要があるという点に関しては同意しますが。
じゃあなんだ
Who is he? Hold on. They can't be just adding all these guys. This guy's the prettiest. No. My sensibilities. Oh my god. No, yo, the fluffy hair and the fluffy ponytail. The side ponytail. Oh my god. Blue hair and purple eyes and his titties a bit hanging out. Hello, sir. Hello, I love you already. Okita who? I don't know who Okita is. All I know is this nameless man.
切り合うときは、やあやあ我こそはって名乗りを上げて、正々堂々とやるべきだとでも言うつもりか。不定浪士どもがそんな鎌倉武士みたいなご作法に付き合ってくれりゃいいがな。
サブロ
So who's best husband though here? For now is Okita. We're romancing him. I'll show you when he pops up on the screen again.
もっと悪い。
Saburo Miki. That's his name, okay. The other man beside Ito was Saburo Miki, who joined at the same time as Ito. Allegedly, he was Ito's younger brother by blood. Ah, allegedly? So they are connected, some kind of relationship.
皆さん方ごめんなさいね。この子は昔から口が悪くて。
Bro, Miki's so cute, what the
気を
hell?
悪くなさらないでくださいな。あなたのような方も新選組を大きくしていく上では必要だ
Bro,
と思います。
Miki, that's peak character design. I swear I love the fluffy hair.
たとえ左腕が使い物にならなくとも、その才覚と学識は隊のた
Oh,
めに大いに役立つはずですわ。
that honestly felt very harsh right there. Even if your left arm is useless, you're still useful to us. That's a very rough spot for Sanan right now. I watched as Sanan bit his lip, an act of restraint to Ito's sour words. The tension was cut by another voice.
伊藤さん、今のはどういう意味？
Oh, Hijikata has to get into this now. Hijikata's voice was cold and sharp, like the sound of a blade sliding across a whetstone. Ito seemed taken back, and his eyes grew wide. Of course, you literally just insulted Sanan. He's been here longer than you. No wonder you're getting yelled at.
あんたが言うように、三男さんは優秀な論客だ。けどな、剣客としてもこの新選組に必要な人間なんだよ。
Hijikata only spoke when necessary, so must have been something he truly believed. However,
ですが、
Sanan, you're still useful. We can heal your arm. I don't know how, but we can fix it. I can fix it. He couldn't even seem to bring himself to finish. It seemed as though Hijikata realized his words were reminding Sanan of what he used to be, causing Sanan to curl his lips into a frown.
ごめん遊ばせ。私としたことが失言でしたわ。三男さんは皆さん方の大切なお仲間ですものね。仲がよろしくて結構なことですわ。新たに入隊した大使たちも同じ気持ちでいてくれるといいのですけど。
Hijikata's eyes seethed with anger towards Ito. Jesus. Kondo tried to relieve the tension by stepping in and clearing the air.
とりあえず、豚書移転の件に関しては、もう少し話し合ってから決めるということで。伊藤さん、この後お付き合いを願いますから、先ほどの件について、もう少し詳しい話をお聞きしたいので。
ええ、喜んで。
Seeing the two get up, Takeda followed right behind them.
近藤局長、私もご一緒して構いませんか？
いいとも。ぜひ君も伊藤さんの話を聞いて大いに見識を広めてくれたまえ。新選組幹部といえど剣術ばかりではいかんからな。これからは広い視野と深い知識を身につけなが
Sorry
ら
if I'm lurking here at work, bored out of my mind. You're totally fine. I'm happy that you're lurking, listening to me talk about husbandos.
は、
Kondo left the common room with Ito and Miki, however, who still sat before us. Saburo, sir. He smirked coldly towards us, and he slinked off to leave the common room. Okita spoke once. Miki's footsteps weren't audible.
まったく、誰なのさ、あんな人たちを連れてきたのは。
Oh, Kiyo, this is who we're romancing. This is my number one right now. Okita, Soji Okita. We love him with all of our heart. Just look at him. And he's voiced by Morikubo Shotaro, so that makes him even better. And he's threatened to kill us quite a few times also, and he's bullied children.
帰ってきたらとっちめてやる。伊藤さんは尊攘派なんだろう。長州の奴らと同じ考えの奴がよく新選組に入る気になったもんだな。
尊皇攘夷だからって長州と同一視されるのは心外らしい。そもそも尊皇とはどうかなんとかわけのわからねえことを抜かしてやがったんだよ。
Oh?
近藤さんも近藤さんであっさり丸め込まれやがって。
近藤さんってお人
Kondo is too nice for himself. Oh man, all of these memories of this game are coming back.
ああいう
So many
口がう
memories.
まくてお腹の中が真っ黒な人に騙されやすいんだよな。
その伊藤さんが参謀で、弟が9番組組長か。めんどくさいことになったぜ。
This is gonna be a real bitch. Yes, it is. I can already see the tension forming between them. Eventually, Hijikata approached Sanan, who weakly hung his head, facing the floor in shame.
三男さん、あんな奴の言うことなんざ気にするんじゃねえぞ。
Sanan laughed dryly and shook his head.
伊藤さんは学識も高く弁舌に優れ
No, don't compare
剣の
yourself!
腕も確か
Sanan,
に
you're much better than him. We don't need Ito.
優秀な参謀の入隊でついに総長はお役御免というわけ
We
です
aren't doing this. We gotta shower Sanan with lots of love, y'all. We love this man with all of our heart. He is not useless.
おい、三男さん。
Sanan left the room as Hijikata's voice trailed behind, echoing in the hall.
三男さんも気の毒にな。あの調子だから近頃は大使連中にも避けられちまってる。
What? But why?
無理もねえだろう。どんな言葉をかけても全部悪く取られちまうし。何を言っても皮肉と嫌味しか返ってこねえから大使たちも怯えちまって近づかねえんだよ。
Oh no, poor Sanan. Even though I haven't been here as long as the captains, I knew Sanan was still well liked by the other warriors before his injury.
土方さん、伊藤さんたちなんて適当な理由をつけてさっさと追い出しちゃってくださいよ。あの人たちが来てから僕、毎晩嫌な夢ばっかり見るんですよね。
んなことできるわけねえだろうが。近藤さんはすっかり伊藤さんに心酔してるみてえだしな。伊藤さんと一緒に入隊してきた連中もそんな扱いをされりゃ黙っちゃいねえだろう。
Just disappear, so take him out, basically.
役に立たない人だな。無理を通すのが鬼副長の役目でしょ。
んじゃてめえが副長やりゃいいだろうが。で、あいつらを追い出せ。
嫌に決まってるじゃないですか。そんなめんどくさいの。
Mendokusai. If you guys didn't know, his Okita's voice actor also voices Shikamaru in Naruto. So that's what he says that a lot. If you watch the dub, it's translated into what a drag, but in Japanese is Mendokusai. The census was that Ito was not to be trusted, and it seems no one spoke in his defense. Only one, during all of this, quietly sipped his tea. Saito, he's always quiet too. Saito quietly looked up at me as I poured more tea into his cup. Hey, so what do you think about Ito? I mean, about Ito joining, that is.
さまざまな考えを持つ者が属してこそ、タイというのは広がりを見せるもの
Ah, so then...
だ。だが無理に広げようとすると、内部から瓦解を始めることもある。
His words hung in the air, a dark omen for the future of the Shinsengumi. It was considered of Ito to join, but his presence seemed to be a recipe for dissension, if not outright disaster. Alright, so I'm pretty sure that's going to be a conflict later on. The setting sun glowed through the windows with a warm, rich maroon, an ominous kind of beauty. It's cold. I came out into the yard, and my body stopped due to the cold. Guess spring took a while. I wasn't too fond of Ito, but it was Sanan and his condition that truly worried me. I really wish his arm would just heal. That arm, or perhaps more accurately, the lack of it, was the source of his change in personality. Still, as nice as it would be for Sanan's arm to simply start working again, that seemed like the stuff of a child's fable, not real life. That was when I remembered.
薬でも何でも使ってもらうしかないですね。三男さんも納得してくれるんじゃないかな。
そうじ。めったなこと言うもんじゃねえ。幹部が羅刹になってどうするんだよ。
Right, they still haven't really told us what the Furies are in this game, and I'm pretty sure I have a hint based on what happened in the prologue and little talks here and there that I should not have been listening to. Okita was talking about the Shinsengumi having some secret serum back in the day. Judging from how they spoke of it, it's an item with circumstances. And I was not to know about the existence of that serum. If I were to look into it without approval, there would no doubt that I'd be punished. But I'm the daughter of a doctor. I'm pretty sure I had more knowledge on the medicine than the men of the Shinsengumi did. Alright, and then we return to our room here. Yeah, return to the room. Perhaps it would be best just to return to my room. I didn't want to get in trouble for wandering around, but most of all, I didn't want to find myself in anyone's way. Even though I was worried about Sanan, maybe it's for the best for me to stay out of the way. Just as the sun dipped below the horizon, the compound exploded with activity. My worry increased tenfold. Did something happen? I waited for a few moments for the activity to settle down, but it did no such thing. Something was wrong. I could feel it. I struggled against it for as long as I could, but eventually, my curiosity got the better of me. There must be someone in the common room. I decided to ask someone what had happened. No! What does Sanan do? Please, bruh, please don't tell me this man offed himself or he took the medicine that he's not supposed to. Sanan, please be okay, please be okay, please be okay. Don't just off a man like this. He did! So I'm not supposed to be listening to this? Oh my god. That's more trouble. Oh, he really did. He took that damn serum they were talking about. Oh no, it's already happening! I don't want to continue. I'm too scared. Sanan was desperate. Bruh, MC, please go back to your room. Why are we so curious? Bruh, if I would have heard something, I would have tried to go back to my room and hope no one saw me.
三男さんは
I wonder what they meant by treatment. Please, no one see me. I'm hoping no one sees me. It's gonna be so awkward. Occasionally, I'd hear the captains referring to something similar from time to time. So, didn't Sanan drink that thing?
三男総長は独自に薬
How's
の
my
改良
cat?
を
Price,
続
what
け
are
て
you
いる
doing?
と聞きます。理性を保ったまま腕の傷を治す。その成功にかけたのでしょう
Here, what you doing?
が、失敗を悟った三男総長は掃除の静止を聞かず自陣したと。
He what? No. Oh, oh my god. Can we not? Can we not? Can we not? I didn't ask for this angst. I knew what I was signing up for, but I didn't really want any angst. This isn't Sanan's route, but I care about him very deeply, especially with everything he's going through right now. Can I go back to my room? We kind of gave away our position, too. I don't want to continue. Can I stop stream? A 30-minute stream is good enough, right? I can just stop here and go on about my day, and we'll pretend Chapter 3 never happened. I don't want to click. I'm gonna click, but I'm gonna close my eyes. The words were past my lips before I'd even thought them. I don't want to continue. As one, all eyes in the room turned toward me. I don't want to look. I'm blocking part of the screen. I don't want to look at their faces.
どうしてお前がここにいる?
My bad. I'm so sorry, Hijikata. Oh my god, I hate situations like these. These feel so awkward. Actually feels like I'm really here being scolded by this man. The longer his cold gaze kept me pinned, the tighter my throat became until I could barely breathe, let alone speak. I'm so sorry. I honestly didn't mean to. I felt a strange combination of anxiety, suspicion, and animosity that I had felt before on the night I arrived to the headquarters of the Shinsengumi. Now as then, I knew the meaning of that gaze. I am so sorry, Hijikata, I swear.
トシ、そろそろ彼女にも聞いてもらった方がいいんじゃないか。彼女はコードーさんの娘だ。知る権利はあるだろう。
I felt my eyes go wide at the mention of my father's name. We're gonna learn some truth? Why would my father's name come up here? Don't tell me he had something to do with this. Hijikata's gaze slid to Kondo, sporting an unpleasant grimace. After a moment, however, he gave a long, exasperated sigh and turned back to me.
先に言っておく。お前は新選組に必要ねえ人間。
Well, damn, Hijikata!
コードーさんを探す役には立つかもしれねえが、お前がいなくてもどうってことはね。
Yeah, but I'm his daughter, hello?
もしおかしな真似をすれば、即座に。
Oh my god, Hijikata, please. We've been over this so many times. I am trying to find my father.
そいつをてめえの肝にしっかり命じてから話を聞け。
The intensity of Hijikata's statement felt like a sharp dagger pointed at my throat. I'm the daughter. The Shinsengumi only let me stay with them in the slight chance I come in handy when the time arose to search for my father. Oh, that's a bit of a sting. That's a punch in the gut, actually. Not a little sting, that's a huge sting. Although it wasn't their primary duty, the Shinsengumi had the watch for all manhunts. There's nothing left to tie me here, apart from my memories of the last year. Are you going to kill me? My words were flushed with worry, and Hijikata thinned his eyes like he was speaking to a servant.
まだ殺さねえよ。もっとも、いつ死のうと困らねえがな。
Akira! Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the SSStaries. We look cute fighting villains and make bad financial decisions. You're totally fine. I honestly forget to follow so many of my mutuals all the time until I actually watch one of their streams. But then I feel embarrassed to follow them during streams, so I wait until after their stream is over. Welcome, welcome! Hope you enjoy your stay. We're playing Hakuoki, and we're about to get a huge truth bomb planted on us, and I am not ready. Oh? I was glad, I suppose, that I wasn't going to be killed, but I was still far from happy. Yeah, that only kind of sucks. We've been with these people with a year, and all this time, we still aren't treated as an equal. I love Hakuoki I played for Mamo. Mamo's character is so cute! I love Hakuoki so much, honestly. I've only really technically played 2 or 3 routes years and years ago when I first got my Vita, but I'm now really trying to play through every single guy's route. I've been with the Shinsengumi for nearly a year, and my position with them hadn't changed. The truth cut deep. Can I leave?
今までは君にも伏せていたのだが、コードさんはもともとここで薬の研究をしていた。
Oh! So our dad directly knew them. You mean... I gulped audibly, and I carefully formulated what I was going to say in my head before I said it out loud. I'll be here even though it's 4:30 a.m. I might sleep in a bit though, Oki. That's totally fine. It's 4:30 a.m. I'm usually knocked out by then too anyway. The one that Sanan took? When Kondo nodded, it was if there was a great weight resting on him.
あの薬はもともと幕府の高官がここに持ち込んだものだ。何でも西洋との交易で手に入れたものだと聞かされている。
Curiosity swelled inside me, and my head felt light from the anticipation. Still, I knew that digging deep is dangerous. These thoughts swirled.
人間の筋力と自然治癒能力を爆発的に高める西洋渡来の薬。
Could that be something our dad gave us? Because MC did say she has the ability to heal pretty quickly, like in a day's worth.
あれを飲んだ者は野生の獣と渡り合うことも不可能ではなくなる。致命傷でなければ傷は立ちどころに塞ぎ、首を落とされるか心臓を撃たれぬ限り戦い続けることができるのだ。
Huh. Does such a concoction really exist? Remember your little ability, lady. Come on. It felt like I was hearing some sort of fairy tale.
ただし、あの薬には甚大な副作用がある。
A price?
あれを飲んだ人間は狂気に駆られ、人の血なしでは生きることさえできない。
Ah. So those were the guys we saw in the prologue. They were Shinsengumi members who drank that concoction.
新選組の大使を実験台に薬の改良を進めていたのがコードさんだ。
Oh, well, damn. My father? Oh, Kira! Thank you for subscribing. Thank you, thank you. You have single-handedly given me money for my gacha spending. Thank you very much. Somewhere deep in my heart, I knew my father had some connection with all of this. Knowing my father was involved with driving men mad, all I could do was wonder why. To perform experiments of the Shinsengumi. So, that night in the alley... Saito nodded plainly.
薬を飲んだ大使たちは南部邸にいる。ヤギ邸では人目につくからな。血に触れぬ限り正気を失うことはない。我々にとっては御しやすい者たちだ。
Saito spoke quietly and indifferently. It was as if he was talking about a distant memory. Living with them for so long made me forget. There's still a line between myself and the Shinsengumi men that couldn't be crossed, and his coldness reminded me of this notion.
大丈夫か？顔色悪いぜ。
I mean, we just found out our dad's experimenting on guys. I'm alright.
無理すんな。こんな話を聞かされりゃ気分も悪くなるよな。
おしゃべりはその辺にしとけ。今は三男さんのことが先だろうが。
つってもどうするんだ？三男さん死にかけてるじゃねえか。
Oh.
薬はここに持ち込まれたばかりの頃とは違う。まだ狂うと決まったわけじゃねえ。薬が効いてるんならどんな怪我でも治るはずだからな。
Hijikata felt like he was restrained in saying this. as if he was trying to keep his hopes low. Can someone take me back to my room?
生きるか死ぬか狂うかの瀬戸際だろうからな。うん、行ってこよう。確か彼の部屋には掃除もいるのだったな。
Kondo nodded deeply, then stood and walked towards the room. Can I leave? Can someone walk me back to my room?
三男さんの部屋へは誰も近づけるな。特に伊藤派の連中はな。ああ、わかってる。新橋、前川邸の様子を見てきてくれるか。
わかった。
Do not leave me with Hijikata, I swear, please, y'all. I'm too scared. As he passed, Nagakura's eyes met mine for an instant, and his gaze? In them, I saw the same hostility felt on that night I first arrived. And they were filled with doubt and suspicion towards me. See, this is why I don't make friends. This is why I don't get close to anyone. They still see me with suspicion. This honestly kinda hurts. We've been with them for a whole year, but we basically haven't advanced at all. Eventually, Hijikata faced his gaze to me. Alright. It seemed as though his suggestion wasn't out for worry for my well-being, but rather that it wasn't a wise idea for me to be wandering around. Alright. I bowed slightly, but even with their warnings, I would be limited. Where should I go? Chapter. Oh no! Wait! Yes, y'all! Wait! I was looking at the wrong part for the walkthrough. Oh my god, I think I did the first option wrong. I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. We're supposed to investigate. Okay. So now we're at the right place. Investigate instead. Here we go. Okay, so now this is a divergent route. I'm going to muster the courage to look into this. But where should I investigate? My room is in the Yagi house. There are some rooms that I'm not allowed to enter, but the captains live here as well, and I finally learned how to navigate the building. However, there was another building that was part of the headquarters for the Shinsengumi, aside from the Yagi house. Some of the leaders, along with the other warriors, live in the Marikawa house diagonally from Yagi. And Sanan, who's injured, has been holed up in the Nambu residence, located behind Yagi. Since it's a residence, one cannot just stroll there casually, and since it is barely used by anyone other than Sanan, it is a little isolated. If there are secrets being kept from me, then they have to be kept in that place. I'd never think to check. Oh, we're going to investigate even though we're not supposed to. Okay, so we're just walking closer to our death than the last one. If I were to look into it, it would either be in there or the forbidden areas of the Yagi residence. What should I look into? Alright, and it is the Nambu house. Let's make sure it's Okita's route. Once I was quite sure everyone in the Yagi house was asleep, I made my move. Bruh, we really sneaking out late at night. This is a quicker way to get killed than the last route. So far, so good. Luckily, I was able to get to the entrance without anything happening, and I sighed with relief. Oh, whoa. I wasn't expecting that. The surprise of seeing someone froze me. Okay, so well, I'm not really. So we're not running away. We're just sneaking around. Look, well, it's not like that. How was I supposed to explain to him? The more I panicked, the more I choked up.
切っちゃえばいいだけです。
Oh, there's the Okita I know and loved, threatening to end my life.
逃げたところでどうせ行くあてもないだろうしね。
You're right. He was right. Even if I somehow managed to escape the Shinsengumi, I will lose my best chance at finding my father.
何にせよ、さっさと部屋に戻りなよ。子供が遊ぶ時間じゃないんだから。
I kinda like how he threatened to slit my throat, and then he's sitting here saying I shouldn't be playing around at night and should go back to bed. I like the duality of a man.
君だってあらぬ疑いをかけられて切られたくないでしょ。
Yeah. Maybe Okita was right, that it was reckless of me to investigate the serum, and thoughts swirled in my head before Okita spoke up again.
もし怖いものを見たら、すぐに声を上げて助けを呼ぶんだよ。
He's letting us go? He really said go ahead and have fun.
一人で何とかしようなんて思わなくてもいいから。わかった。
Then, are you gonna provide an explanation if others catch me outside of my room late at night? Huh? He sounded rather serious for a moment. What do you mean by something scary? What could I run into in the Shinsengumi's headquarters that could be as scary as he thinks? He looked almost surprised for a moment, his face breaking into a wide grin.
そうだな。怖い夢とか、お化けとか、あ、鬼副長なんてのもあるかもね。
That does sound scary. If Hijikata found out that I was walking around the compound without permission, I'm going to go back to my room now.
そうそう。おとなしく寝てるのが賢明だよ。僕は中庭をもう一回りしてこようかな。
Oh, why did we not think someone would be patrolling the courtyard late at night just in case? Okita started to hum as he walked away. I didn't expect to be found, especially by Okita of all people. There was no way I could sneak into the Nambu house behind his back. Maybe I could investigate the Yagi house before going back to my room. Wait. I was so surprised, I hadn't stopped to think. Why was Okita up so late? It was as if he expected someone to leave the Yagi house. But there's no way he could have known I would try. If not me, then who? Sanan! Because in the previous part, when I did the wrong choices, they talked about how Okita was with Sanan. So he's probably waiting out for Sanan just in case. It was night at the Yagi house, and dead silent. I tiptoed down the halls as quietly as possible. Huh? Were my ears playing tricks on me? Or did someone just walk into the common room? Is it Sanan? Are they gonna show us Sanan offing himself? Please no, please no, please no, please no. I would be in trouble if someone saw me, so I did my best to blend into the shadows and hide. God, please no. After a few moments of heart-pounding seclusion, my curiosity got the best of me. I departed my hiding place and kept toward the common room. I peered inside. Oh my god! We actually witnessed the Sanan scene? Inside was Sanan. I wonder why. Something felt wrong. I just stood there. What is Sanan doing here late at night? I was at a loss. Should I speak to him or... Before I could make up my mind, he turned.
まさか君に見つかるとはね。正直予想していませんでしたよ。
Sanan gazed directly at me and muttered.
雪村くん、そこにいるのでしょ？出てきなさい。
I guess he spotted me. I gave up and made myself visible to Sanan. I'm sorry if it seemed like I was snooping or watching what you were doing.
別に叱るつもりはありませんよ。
Sanan, please don't do it.
夜中に怪しい人影を見かけたら気にかかるのは当然でしょうしね。
It was very subtle, but I noticed something was off in Sanan's attitude. He had a peaceful smile, Something I hadn't seen for what felt like ages. It was a bit too peaceful, as if his worries had suddenly left him. It was an expression I had never seen since he'd gotten injured. Sanan, did something good happen?
ええ、ありましたよ。というより、ようやく決心できたと言うべきでしょうか。
Something swished in his hands. Sanan, what is that?
これが気になりますか?
After his cryptic reply, he showed me what was in his hand. Sanan was holding a bottle made from fine idoro. The glass was filled with a crimson liquid that looked like a poisonous chemical to me.
これは君の父親であるコードーさんが
Ah, so we learned this differently if you catch Sanan. What? The shogunate ordered my father to do something?
もともと西洋から渡来したものだそうですよ。人体に劇的な変化をもたらす飛躍としてね。
What do you mean by utterly transform?
単純な表現をすると、筋力や自己治癒力の増強でしょうか。
It sounded like something out of a fairy tale. If such a thing were to truly exist, the serum would be considered a miracle cure, but...
しかし、この薬には致命的な欠陥がありました。
His smile twisted, only a little.
強すぎる薬の効能が人の精神を狂わすに至ったのです。薬を飲んだ人間がどうなったか。
Oh, we definitely have.
君も目にしたことがありますね。
Of course, I seen the result of that madness the night I first met the Shinsengumi. Them, okay. Okita and Saito had killed off that monster with the white hair.
君は察しがいいですね。そう、あの時の大使たちですよ。
Oh, thank you for hosting! Thank you. Really appreciate it. I hope your day is good.
薬を与えられた彼らは理性を失い、血に狂う化け物となり果て
Love you too! His words brought a sharp chill down my spine. How horrible.
切り合いの最中、血が流れるたびに狂っていては、強靭な肉体を手に入れた意味がありません。
I'll be lurking while working on comms. Enjoy the... So, I will! And have fun working on comms. I hope you get a lot done today.
コードーさんは、新選組という実験場で、この薬の改良を行っていたのですよ。
No. My father conducting experiments on human beings that made them go mad at the sight of blood? I couldn't believe it. No, I didn't want to believe it. But there was no reason for Sanan to lie either. I saw it before my very eyes. Then, did father really? Sanan shrugs off my disbelief and continued.
しかし残念ながら彼は行方不明となり、
So that's why they've just been looking for him. Not because he's a doctor well known in Western medicine, but because he knows the research and they need him to continue it.
コードーさんが残した資料をもとにして、私が手を加えたものがこれ。
He smirked and shook the bottle gently. The liquid inside sloshed from side to side, almost lazily.
その原液をできる限り薄めてあります。
I had so many questions to ask him, but I didn't even know where to start, so I simply spoke the first thing that came to mind. If you drink that, will you be okay? So that serum, will it prevent you from going mad?
まだわかりません。誰にも試していないものですから。
His smile faded.
飲めば私の腕は治ります。
You mean you're actually considering taking it? He had no guarantee that it wouldn't simply kill him outright. And even if he did survive, it may well drive him crazy. Sanan, please reconsider this. I'm sure there's some other way. You don't need to rely on the...
こんなものにでも頼らなければ私の腕は治らないのですよ。私はもはや用済みとなった人間です。普通の会社まで影口を叩いているのは知っています。あなたにはわからないでしょうね。大いなる志を持って同志と共に江戸から登ってきたというのに。
It's always so cozy here. Oh, I'm glad you think so. I'm so happy to hear that. Well, technically read that. I'm glad it's so nice and cozy, just people sitting around talking about anime guys.
何の役にも立てぬままお情けで住職を与えられている私の気持ちなど。
How could you say it's pity? You're a leader here. The Shinsengumi respects and needs you now, more than ever. Sanan's eyes dotted with melancholy, flashing a brief smile that entertained the idea behind my words.
よく覚えていますよ。私は剣客としてもこの新選組に必要なのですよね。
Sanan seemed bitterly focused on the words Hijikata said earlier. They really did affect him.
剣客として死に、ただ生きた屍になれというのであれば、人としても死なせてください。
No!
失敗すると決まったわけではありません。
Sanan, you're killing me. Everyone thinks you're important besides Ito and his gang. Don't mind Ito. Ito literally just joined us a few months ago. Sanan smiled as he said that, but there is no way to know what might happen to him. Considering the worst that could happen, I couldn't sit by and allow him to do this. We scream! Because that's what Okita told us. We scream. Sanan came to hate himself for being unable to fight along his comrades and friends. Even if they forgave him, he never forgave himself. But... was it this sort of thing only a fellow swordsman could comprehend then? How could I convince him to listen to me? It was then, in that moment of helplessness, that I remembered Okita's words.
もし怖いものを見たら、すぐに声を上げて助けを呼ぶんだよ。
Of course! I could never know what Sanan felt, but another man devoted to the sword might. I screamed as loud as my lungs allowed, my voice echoing down the halls and across the courtyards of the compound. I can't really yell at my house, so pretend I did. Okita! But even as I cried out, Sanan drew his head back and drained the vial in a single draught. No! With a soft clink of glass, it rolled from Sanan's palm to the floor of the common room. He really did. His face was warped in pain, and he collapsed to the floor. Please, Sanan, I can't have you dying on me. His hair began to turn white, like those other guys' hair was. Don't be attracted to the white hair and red eyes. Don't be attracted to the white hair and red eyes. It became clear to me that his pain was something no ordinary person could handle. Sanan, you have to hold on. Through his fingers, I saw his maddening eyes. Before me were the eyes that greeted me on that first night in Kyoto. Behind me, I heard the door slide open. Sanan looked behind me, over my shoulder.
Okita-kun.
Oh, Okita, thank God, thank God.
こんばんは、三男さん。
It seemed like Okita didn't even look at me. His eyes completely focused on Sanan, then briefly the small bottle on the floor, before back to Sanan. Oh, thank God. Okay, we're doing it right this
教え
time.
てくれてありがとう。
Okita, Sanan stared at Okita, his breath ragged and pained, like air struggling to stay in his chest.
見ての通り、実験は失敗です。沖田君、お願いできますか?
Is he asking Okita to take him out? To murk him?
ええ。わかってます。
Oh, Okita, are they gonna take out Sanan for real, for real? I should not have chose this way. I should not have done this. I should not have investigated. His expression flashed into a familiar grin. Even after Okita drew his sword, it still didn't occur to me what was about to happen. The polished tip of Okita's blade was pointed directly at Sanan.
安心してください。きちんと僕が解釈してあげ
Oh
ま
my
す。
god. Did I make it worse? This is technically the rate is supposed to go to his good end, but I think I made it worse even so.
飲み込みが早くて助かりますよ。さすが新選組の剣だ。
Sanan executed calm at the sound of Okita's response. I held my breath, unsure if I wanted to see what was about to happen before me. Please turn your head. I don't think I can do anything to stop this, can we? Okita? You're not serious, are you? You aren't really going to kill him, are you? My voice shook with disbelief, and Okita's eyes paid me no attention.
やめてくれないかな、そういうの。よそ者は黙っててよ。
But you're about to kill Santa in front of me, and he was your comrade. I know the whole take him out before he kills other people thing, but come on. Wasn't Sanan his comrade? Or his friend? Everyone seemed to give their heart and soul to the Shinsengumi, but not like this.
鬱陶しいんだよ。新選組大使にでもなったつもり。
Oh, they're in the heart. He didn't even move, but his tone hit like a slap. I've been living with him for so long that my initial fear almost completely disappeared. I felt like I found a place for myself.
忘れたって言うんならもう一度言ってあげるよ。
Thanks, Okita.
君は利用価値があるから生かしてあげてるだけで、僕たちの仲間じゃない。
His words shattered my already breaking heart. When the one you love just outright murders you and all your feelings. But just then... Sanan screamed in pain, and I saw him kick the floor. Then I heard a horrific sound, like meat being cleaved and resounding through the darkness. Peeking over Okita's back, I heard the loud thud of a body collapsing to the floor, and around Okita's foot pooled the dark red puddle of blood. Oh, did he really take him out? Sanan! I was trembling as I watched the blood trickle.
近づかない方がいいよ。
Okita's arm appeared in front of me, coldly. What? But why? I gave him a reproachful gaze, but he showed no signs of faltering.
何度も言わせないでくれる。近づくなって言ってるでしょ。深手は負わせたけど、また襲いかかってこないとは限らないしね。
Oh, he only subdued him. He didn't kill him. Oh, thank God. Okita, I was about to cry. Huh?
あの薬を使ったら、この程度じゃ死ねないんだ。
Oh, Uchi-senpai, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the SSStaries. We look cute fighting villains and make bad financial decisions. Hope you enjoy your time here and all the ikemen we talk about. So, Sanan is still alive? Okita nodded bitterly, his body locked into a defensive position.
死ねないって言ってるんだから。生きてるに決まってるでしょ。
I was relieved from the bottom of my heart. Oh, thank goodness. This good news, however, didn't mean we could let our guards down. Sanan could lose his senses again and potentially mortally wound us. But for now, at least Sanan is still alive. So is anyone gonna come into this room after hearing all this going on? There we go. There we go. After Sanan collapsed, the captains rushed into the room. They must have heard the commotion from the common room. Everything glowed white after, and I realized that I was in a daze. None of their words stuck in my ear, and I wobbled back to my room. At least I didn't have Hijikata yell at me this time. I'd rather take this way than Hijikata yelling at me, saying I'm not one of them, and that they're just using me to find my dad. Okita had taken me back to my room, and I heard him as soon as he opened the door for me. Okita was never particularly pleasant to me, but his tone was even harsher than usual. I felt like there was someone in the common room. I was curious, so I had to take a look, and I found Sanan in there. Okita's lackadaisical response seemed disarming, and he just scanned me. Although my mind had cleared somewhat, it was still difficult to keep my thoughts organized. One, however, rose quickly to the surface. Is it true that my father has something to do with that stuff that Sanan drank? Yes, he said it makes you stronger, but it drives you mad. He fixed his eyes wearily on the ceiling above us, sighing before eventually answering my questions.
君は薬をここに持ち込んだ人の娘だし、狂った大使とも実際に会ってるし、少しぐらいなら聞かせてあげてもいいかな。
Oh, it feels better when Okita says it than when Hijikata explained it.
本当なら殺しちゃいたいところだけど。
Of course it'd be easy to kill me. Oh, I should have had a counter of how many times Okita threatened to kill me. Damn it. I'll do that next time. I'll have that next time with every playthrough, how many times they threatened to kill me. His manner of speaking was far removed from his usual joking self when he mentioned killing. But this time, it felt like he meant it. He could kill me at any time.
薬のことについて何か質問ある？一つくらいなら答えてあげるけど。
I desperately searched for the words. Why did the Shinsengumi get involved in something like this?
僕たちの役目は今日を騒がせる不逞浪士を取り締まることだけど、簡単な仕事じゃないっていうことぐらい君にだってわかるよね。
Yeah? Among the Ronin, there are plenty that are actually skilled swordsmen. When I was on rounds, I saw many such men fighting and dueling amongst themselves.
今日に来たばかりの頃はとにかく人手が足りなくてね。僕たちの名前なんて全然知られてないし、給金だって満足に出なかったからさ。入隊希望者なんてめったにいないし、たまに来ても得体の知れないゴロつきばっかり。そんな時、幕府の人が薬の実験を持ちかけてきたんだ。
An experiment? That must have what Sanan had been referring to. So, you knew what the side effects were, and you still made them take it?
もちろん、彼らも承知の上だよ。新選組にはね、局中ハットっていうのがあるんだ。隊をまとめるための決まりみたいなものなんだけど、それに背くと即切腹を申し付けられる。
Ah, yeah. Cut yourself open?
あれ、何驚いてるの？武士の責任の取り方って言えば切腹しかないじゃない。
Oh, there we go. Yeah, seppuku. Okay. Traditionally, when samurai disgraced themselves, they drove their swords into their bellies. I had thought such traditions were obsolete, and that now the worst they do is pretend to cut themselves open with a fan.
でもまあ、どうせ死んじゃうんだし、最後にもう一度役に立ってもらった方がいいでしょ。だから、切腹するか、薬を飲むか、好きな方を選んでもらうことにしたんだ。
Okay, gave him an ultimatum.
かわいそうだよね。本当に。
I couldn't think of anything to say. What sort of choice was that? Death by your own hand, or madness and death by someone else's? The men that I encountered that winter night, had their last thoughts as men been hope that they might survive the madness? It sounded horrible.
簡単に強くなれる薬があれば便利だよね。実際は全然大したことなかったんだけど、僕たちでも簡単に切っちゃえるぐらい。
In a moment, I was taken back to that fateful night when Okita dispatched the warriors with white hair without any effort.
三男さんはこれからどうなるんだろうね。
I was worried too. Was Sanon okay? Would he change? My stomach was twisting itself into knots. I hope Hijikata doesn't talk to me. And so, the long night broke. The captains of the Shinsengumi gathered in the common room. Oh, thank God! The room collectively breathed a sigh of relief.
で、どうなんだ、三男さんの様子は。
今はまだ寝てる。静かなものだよ。
今までの大使たちみたいになっちまってるのか、それとも。
Inoue simply shook his head.
確かなことは目を覚ますまでわからんね。見た目は昨日までと変わらないんだが。
Suddenly then, the door slid open.
おはようございます、皆さん。ごきげんいかが。
Ito is a sneaky snake, and I don't trust this man. He is a sneaky snake.
うげとはご挨拶ですのね。皆さん、お顔の色が優れない様子ですけど。
そりゃ、朝っぱらからあんたの顔見たせいに決まってるだろうが。
I'm glad it's universally known that we all don't like Ito.
まあ、長倉くんったら冗談がお上手ですこと。
Ito dismissed Nagakura's snide remark, and he turned to face the standing warriors.
皆さんの顔色がよろしくないのは、もしかして昨晩の
Do not go there. Please do not go there.
あ、いや、そのだな。
Desperately, Kondo's eyes flew around the room as if he was looking for someone to offer an excuse.
よし、ごまかせその。
あ、俺が実は昨日。
He sounds so fake giving this explanation.
大根役者は出しゃばらないでくれるかな。そういうのだったらもっと得意な人がいるじゃない。
Okita turned to Saito expectantly, and the latter spoke up at once.
伊藤参謀がお察しの通り、昨晩屯所内にて事件が発生しました。
まあ、事件ですって。
はい。ですが我々もまだ全容を把握できてはいない。
Oh, thank God.
今の時点での説明は余計な誤解を招くばかりかと。
There we go. We got someone smart enough.
ですので今夜にでも場を設け、詳しくお伝えさせていただきたく存じます。
そういうことですの。事情は分かりましてよ。今夜のお呼ばれ、心待ちにしていますわ。では、ごめん遊ばせ。
Bro, y'all just look at him and he seems so sneaky, like he's planning something behind our backs. Ito brandished another strange smile, stood, nodded, and left the room promptly.
なんとか見逃してもらえたみたいだね。
What do you mean?
伊藤さんはなんだかんだで頭が回る人だからな。幹部が勢ぞろいしてる場に三男さんだけいねえんだ。あの人絡みで何かあったってことぐらいすぐ感づくだろ。
Oh. Ito had likely guessed at what took place, but decided not to press the issue. I had looked up just in time to see Sanan shuffle through the door. He's good, and his hair and eyes are back. Sanan?
そんな化け物を見るような目で見られても。
I mean,
三男さん、起きてていいのかい？
少し気だるいですがね。これも薬の副作用でしょう。あの薬を飲んでしまうと昼間動くことが困難になりますから。
Like a vampire, basically. Sanan looked a little pale, but it didn't look too difficult for him to stand and speak. But if it's hard for him to move during the day...
私はもう人ではありません。
Those words sunk our hearts heavily. Even the captains fell silent to his solemn admission.
いや、三男君、君が生きていてくれてよかった。我々はそれだけで十分だと思う。
Kondo stood and grabbed Sanan's shoulder tightly, his expression bright and endearing. Tears nearly welled in his beaming eyes.
それで腕の方はどうなんです？治ったんですか？
まだ本調子ではありませんからね。自分でもよくわからないのですが。
He lifted his left arm, and the arm that had before hung limp at his side, and flexed his hand. It didn't look any different than before his injury.
治っているようですね。少なくとも
Oh,
不
thank
便がな
God.
い程度には。
Thank goodness. In spite of the chaos from last night, his wish to use his arm once more came true. But we still gotta be careful because of the condition he's in now. However,
あの薬を飲んだってことは昼間動けねえようになっちまったんだろう。それなのにタイムに参加なんてできるのか？
his voice was calm, almost careless.
解決策はあります。私が死んだことに。
Hello? Sanan?
これから私は薬の成功例として羅刹を束ねていこうと思っています。
Sanan, please, can we not?
三男さん、それ本気で言ってるのか？あんた自分が何を言ってるのか分かってるのかよ？
分かっていますとも。長倉君、君こそ忘れたのですか？我々は薬の存在を伏せるよう幕府から命じられているのですよ。私が死んだことにすれば今までのように薬の存在を隠し通すことができる。
Sanan, you're killing me.
それにもし薬の持つ副作用を消すことができるのだとすれば、それを使わない手はないでしょう。
They seemed to be against Sanan's idea, though no one said anything. Who would want to consign a friend to a life of secrecy, lived in the shadows? But
薬の実験は幕府からのお達しでもあるしな。そうするしかないか。
まあ、三男さんが自分で選んだ道ですし、止めたって聞く人じゃないですよね。
よくわかっていますね。
Hijikato scoffed at Sanan's suggestion, and bitterness frothed from his words.
豚書移転の話、冗談じゃ済まされなくなったな。三男さんを伊藤派の目から隠すには広い豚書が必要だ。ここじゃ狭すぎる。
同意します。薬の研究を続けるのであれば、なおのこと移転を急ぐべきかと。
よし、ろくに寝てねえとこ悪いが、話し合いを始めさせてもらうぜ。雪村、お前は部屋に戻ってろ。ゆえ、ろくに寝てねえだろ。
Okay, understood. Please excuse me. Oh, thank God, Hijikato didn't scold me. Him scolding you is honestly the scariest thing ever. I bowed to everyone and left the common room. I'm happy that Sanan was safe, but a whole flurry of new concerns arose. Learning of my father's horrible work. What will become of me? Will I be safe? Such thoughts buzzed heavily in my head as I walked back to my room. Oh, Jesus Christ. And then we still got a lot left of this chapter, too. Alright, June? More... The time goes by so fast in this game. I don't understand it. Oh, new headquarters? June 1865. Our emperor had passed, and our year moved from the second of the Ganji to the first of the Keio. It was 3 months since we moved the headquarters to Niji Hongawanji. There's a lot more room, but more room, meant farther to walk. I walked through it almost every day for weeks, and I was finally beginning to learn my way around. As I turned a corner near the back of the compound, I caught sight of someone sitting in the shadows. There you are, Sanan. Your food's ready. Oh, thank God, Sanan's okay. But I'm still kind of hurt. Okita was like, you're not really part of us. The snow disappeared. The cherry blossoms bloomed and fled, and now the swallows and heat came. Sana and I exchanged a pair of smiles, and I held out my hands to let the breeze brush across them. It really gotten warm lately. Really? I didn't think the sun was particularly strong that day, but the Sanan, who hid in the shadows and out of sight during the day, it must have been unbearable. That night he changed. Sanan's hair turned white, and in his eyes was a thirst for blood. But looking at his peaceful smile now made it hard to imagine such a night was real. If someone told me it was all a bad dream, I would have believed it. It wasn't a dream though, and now Sanan spends his days hiding from the sunlight and from others. For just a moment, the sun lit on Sanan's hair. I don't know if it was a trick of the light, or simply my mind being foolish, but in that moment, his hair was a brilliant white. I'm so sorry. Oh, no, it is nothing. He looked perfectly normal now, of course. Surely, I thought, I must have simply imagined it. Even if I had, there is no denying that he was the same man who went mad with bloodlust. The fear of the night cast a shadow over my heart. It was unnerving. Heisuke and I made our way through the crowded as usual streets of Kyoto at a brisk pace. You know, I haven't gone on a patrol with you in quite a while, Heisuke. Heisuke! We like Heisuke in this household too. He's just so precious. I hope with at least Heisuke he sees me as a friend. Everything was fine, and they were kind to me. None at all. What happened? Oh, okay. So Dad did not come back to the house. Dad is somewhere. Maybe he's secretly somewhere continuing his research. The somberness of Heisuke's expression started to rub off on me. Now I was depressed. Oh, thank you for taking the time to look anyway. Heisuke? Heisuke stopped himself mid-sentence, which was jarring. Ever since he returned from Edo, he looked glum. Hey, Heisuke. How about you? It's been a while since you're in Kyoto. Does it seem different from Edo? Huh? I wonder what was going through his head. Did something happen to him in Edo? His sudden change of character confused me. Heisuke's head jerked up slightly, and he looked across the street. He stood on his toes and waved.
おい、ソージ、そっちの様子はどうだった？特に何も、いつも通りだね。
Okita was out on patrol as well, although his route took him through a different part of the city.
でも、将軍上洛の時には忙しくなるんじゃないかな。
The Shogun's coming to visit Kyoto?
そう。近藤さんも張り切ってるよ。近藤さん、家持公のことをすごく尊敬してるから。
I see. I hope it turns out well. Right, Heisuke? There's something seriously wrong with Heisuke. Sir, spit it out. Huh? Something had really gotten into him. I glanced at Okita to see if he had noticed anything. Okita, are you alright?
平気だよ。ちょっと風邪をひいちゃったみたい。
His tuberculosis? I see. Well, please take care of yourself. I have medicine to treat colds, so I'll give you some when we return.
そう。ありがとう。君でもごくたまに役に立つことがあるんだね。
Bro, do they give Okita's tuberculosis in Hakuoki? What's the matter? Okita's eyes looked past me, and suddenly, something caught his attention off to the side.
おい小娘、断るとはどういう了見だ？
やめてください。話して。
民草のために日々上位を論ずる我ら志士に尺の一つや
Bro, look at that. There you go. What's not the extremist? Is it the extremist? The nationalists? Kicking out foreigners. Okay, that's a good way to go about it, huh? Across the street, a clump of perhaps 3 or 4 men were harassing a young girl. She looks really pretty too, honestly. Okita, Heisuke! But it appeared that Okita got to them first.
やれやれ。上位って言葉も君たちに使われるんじゃかわいそうだよ。
The usual crowd shuffled away from Okita, and the men as quickly as they could. No one wanted to be near the sight of unsheathed blades. The Ronin's eyes found Okita's jacket, and the men stiffened.
新選組か。知ってるなら話が早いな。どうする？
Please leave this lady alone, or you're about to get clapped. His lips curled into a predatory smile as his hand gripped his sword. There was no mirth in that rictus grin, and the Ronin's faces grew much paler. Their moods were not totally deflated yet, as the ringleader made one more attempt. The sight of the 2 Shinsengumi blue jackets standing shoulder to shoulder was enough to deter the men. The last of the color drained from their faces, and they turned tail and ran. You're going to go after them? Arrest them? I mean, they were harassing the lady. I guess there's no technical law? I didn't really mean it like that.
助けてくださってありがとうございました。私、南雲薫と申します。
Kaoru, can we romance you too? I watched as the girl gave Okita a quick bow. She was so refined, so ladylike. Even dressed like a girl, I doubted I could ever be as elegant as her. I had only just begun to feel sorry for myself when suddenly I felt a hand on my arm. Okita?
いいから、この子の横に立って。
He shoved me next to the girl we just rescued, then stepped back to stroke his shin thoughtfully. We kind of look the same. I get what he's trying to say. We honestly could be if we switched, like, hairstyles and clothing. Okita? I glanced nervously towards the girl and attempted to smile kindly under the circumstances. The smile she gave in return was beautiful, but there was something about it that seemed odd. Don't tell me she's gonna kill me. She seems familiar. Is she family?
やっぱりよく似てるね、二人とも。
We look like? That's when I finally realized. She was identical to whom I saw in the mirror. Heisuke's blind.
いや、似てるよ。きっとこの子が女装したらそっくりになると思うな。
沖田さん、この方困ってらっしゃいますよ。
Oh, I had to say something, but what? Perhaps she saw through my confusion, or perhaps it was something else.
きちんとお礼をしたいのですけれど、今は所用がありまして。ご無礼、ご容赦くださいね。このご恩はまたいずれ。新選組の沖田総司さん。
Bruh, is she trying to take her husband from us? With that, the girl who called herself Kaoru disappeared into the crowds of Kyoto, although the uneasiness created by her presence remained. Okita, please don't. You're mine, right?
今のがそう見えたんなら、平助は一生佐野さんに勝てないよね。
どういう意味だよ。
Their back and forth continued, but my mind was elsewhere. Last night's rain left a number of puddles on the roads, and when I looked into them, I saw a strange girl who looked just like me. Kaoru, huh? Wind caught the surface of the puddle, sending a flurry of ripples across it. Alright, I'm coming! I turned and ran toward Heisuke and Okita, already on their way back to the headquarters. The temple was much larger than the compound in Mibu, as advertised. The whole Shinsengumi could gather in the common room with space to spare. As Kondo spoke, his voice echoed grandly throughout the hall. Standing before Kondo were many proud men under his leadership with glowing expressions.
皆も徳川第14代将軍徳川家持公が上洛されるという話は聞き及んでいると思う。その上洛に伴い公が二条城に入られるまで新選組総力をもって警護の任に当たるべしとの。
将軍公の警護を新選組が。
Ooh, we're in the big leagues now.
池田屋や金門の変の活躍でお偉いさん方も俺たちの働きを認めざるを得なかったんだろうよ。
警護中は文字通り僕らの刀に国の行く末がかかってるってことですか。
そういうことだ。てめえら気合い入れていけよ。
将軍公の警護とはまた大役ですな。
本当に三男さんが生きている。
I fucking hate Ito.
本当に惜しい方をなくしましたわね。
Bro, he sounds so insincere, like he doesn't really mean it. Ito wiped crocodile tears away from his eyes with a silk handkerchief. I hate him so much, y'all. Ito and his followers were told Sanan died. In fact, the entire incident surrounding his transformation had been covered up. Only a few of the men of the Shinsengumi knew the truth.
伊藤さん、こたびの幕命を立派に成し遂げることこそ。
And Kondo believes this man. Kondo is too nice for himself.
分かっていますわ。私たちの名を天下に広く知らしめる絶好の機会ですものね。
ともあれ、これから忙しくなりますな。
まずはタイの編成を考えねば。とりあえず俺とトシ、それからソジ。
待ってくれ近藤さん。ソジは今回外してやってくれねえか。
なぜ
だ。なんでも風邪が治らねえとかでな。
Is this when he figures out he has tuberculosis? Can we not?
本当か？大丈夫なのかソジ？
Oh my god, no. Can we cut out the tuberculosis and all Okita Soji like stories like these, please?
大した風邪じゃないんですけどね。土方さんは大げさなんですよ。
何言ってやがるんだ。さっきも咳してただろうが。
Oh my god, they really not the tuberculosis.
それ、薬を売りつけるための工場ですか？何を言われても石田三役は買いませんよ。
そんなんじゃねえよ。いいから言う通りにしろ。
I gave Okita some pretty strong medicine not too long ago. I wonder if that didn't work. Or maybe he doesn't have a cold, but rather he's inhaling dust from the lack of cleaning here. Then suddenly, someone raised his hand.
平介、どうしたんだね。何か気になることでもあるのか。
あのさ、近藤さん。実は俺もちょっと調子が。
Bro, the hell is wrong with Heisuke? Hold on, did something happen to Heisuke?
なんだ、平介も風邪か。気をつけないといかんぞ。
Bro, when they murk your husbandos with diseases and illnesses?
せっかくの晴れ舞台。全員揃って家持ち子をお迎えしたかったのだがな。
すいません。
ああ、いや、責めたわけではないんだ。体調は大事だからな。いずれまた機会もあるであろうし、二人にはその時存分に働いてもらいたい。
Kondo and Hijikata continued to discuss their formation, but suddenly Hijikata turned to me. Please don't talk to me. Hijikata's so scary.
そういや、雪村、お前はどうするんだ。
What?
ほうけてるんじゃねえよ。お前は警護に参加するのかって聞いてんだ。
I can go too?
無論構わんとも。君も今や新選組の一員と言っても過言ではない。
Kondo! The way Kondo says I'm one of them, but I know everyone else is like, no, she ain't. Could I really go? I hesitated for a moment, confused, and Okita laughed.
まあ言ってもいいんじゃない？そんなに危険もなさ
But I gotta stay here to be with Okita. I hate this too with some of these decisions. Like at one point I had to stay behind so I can hang out with Okita. And the other guys are kind of disappointed because they stood up for me to get Hijikata to say I'm allowed to go. And I felt really bad that all their efforts are wasted.
長州藩士は今日に出入りできねえから、切った張ったの騒ぎにはならねえだろうし。
What should I do? I'm just a little concerned about a person like me who's not a warrior coming along, but I was feeling emotionally strained with no leads of my father turning up on rounds. I'll go!
よし、わかった。
Oh, we're actually going?
お前には伝令やら使いっ走りを頼むことになると思うがな。こき使ってやるから覚悟しとけ。
In the early days of the Tokugawa shogunate, Nijo Castle was a place for the shogun to stay on his way to the capital. It's been a while since the shogun actually stayed in it, though. We met the shogun on the road and began our escort about 30 minutes earlier and arrived at the castle relatively recently. By now, I imagine Kondo, Nagakura, Inoue, and the men were greeting the officials and other important people in the shogun's retinue. Well, I've got a job to do. It was my job to tell the soldiers when to change shifts and to carry messages back and forth. A glorified errand girl, in other words. I don't see myself as being useless, though. At least I think so. I've come with a message?
なんだ、お前が伝達係かよ。
Look, Hijikata gave me this job, sir. Well, I'm not here to play.
へえ、そうかよ。じゃあまともな刀も刺してないお前が。
Miki, get the hell out of here. I've come here to do what I can. Would you mind if we stop playing games?
言ってみろ。
The chief is currently going around, paying his respects to the people in the castle. Everyone else continue with the guard.
わかった。確かに伝達は聞いた。
Yeah, better take the damn message. Huh? That's it? Is that simple?
なんだそのバカ面は。
Yeah, you gave me some damn flack earlier. Oh, well, no, I just...
仕事は仕事だからな。市場を挟むつもりはねえんだよ。ほら、伝達は聞いたんだ。さっさと行け。
Okay. Miki and I never really got on the best of terms, but maybe he's a responsible person. Why do I always like the guys who are horrible to me? What is this? After he shooed me away, I continued attending to my duties as a messenger. In the surroundings of Nijo Castle, I can see the warriors wearing a white uniform, which was different than the afternoon uniform. They don't seem too nervous. But I guess it makes sense. Some of the imperial nationalist extremists were driven out of Kyoto, and many warriors fled. There's no way anything would happen. Of course, we just jinxed ourselves. A sudden chill ran down the length of my spine. I froze. When we think it's peaceful, it's never peaceful, y'all. I knew the feeling. A length of cold steel seeking entry into your flesh. Eyes shining with the lust for blood and violence. It's hot, guys, but not now. Can you come a different day? Since I'd begun living with the Shinsengumi, I felt it more than once. Bloodlust. My eyes were drawn to the roof, where no one would think to look. A large wall cast a shadow, shielding a section of the roof from the moonlight. There they stood. But we like the middle guy, even though he's our enemy at this point. You! Kazama Chikage! Voiced by Suda-kin! Kinda reminds me of Gilgamesh from Fate because of the yellow hair and the red eyes. Just the disposition of it, honestly. They looked very distinctive, unlike any soldiers I'd seen before. But three set of piercing eyes scattered my thoughts, making it hard to think. I had recognized them. Now I had to put names to faces. Chikage Kazama. We stand this man. Kyuju Amagiri. Kyo Shiranui. They were connected to both the Satsuma and the Choshu, and they made an effort to impede the Shinsengumi at Ikeda and again at Hamaguri. Why are you here? I mean, that too, but... Oh, I just realized he has a gun. I don't see a sword or anything, so he's a gun wielder? Oh, so I am not useful, I swear. Please do not come after me. What? My heart was pounding so hard it could burst. Did they figure out who my dad was? Why did these men know my name? Who told? I don't understand. A demon? What do you mean? And what are you here for? You must be joking. I mean... He stepped forward, cloaked in the shadows. When Amagiri spoke, it was calm and peaceful, as if he were reasoning with a frightened child. They know! Huh? I held my breath. And I just realized he doesn't... Wait, does he have eyebrows? I can't really tell. But oh my god, RIP y'all. I guess I'm gonna get taken out. How does he know my secret? I've never revealed it to anyone before. So then, the only other person who logically should know about our healing powers is our dad. And so either they're working with their dad, or they have this man hostage, or something. It has to add up. Well, words struggled to come to mind, and just as I was about to deny their accusations... Oh, please do not. Oh, please do not. Shiranui's gun glistened eerily.
貴様貴重な女鬼に傷を負わせるつもりか。
んなこと言われても、こいつの往生際が悪いんだからしょうがねえだろうが。
After Kazuma glared at Shiranui, his eyes drifted toward the kodachi on my hip again. I can't fight. Don't look at it. I can't fight. I swear, I can't fight.
鬼を示す生徒、東の鬼が持つ子たち。
Her family name is a demon's? Wait, we were Yukimura? Is Yukimura a demon? Hold on. Is this like an actual demon? I'm like, yep, demon. Hold on, demon? Yukimura? Oh, Sanada Yukimura. Okay, hold on. He was firstly known as the leading general of the defending side of the Siege of Osaka. Yukimura was called a hero who may appeared once in 100 years, Crimson Demon of the War. So there is someone kinda like that with the last name Yukimura in actual Japanese history. And that's the only person I can really see that's like actual real life. So okay. My family name? What was wrong with Yukimura? I didn't understand what he was saying, and the cold sweat started itching down my spine. I kind of hope you get it. Can you please get permission? Not gonna lie, it's kind of hot. It's kind of hot. His hand stretched out from the darkness, pale and grasping like a tentacle of some hideous subterranean monster. Then a blade flickered through the night. Oh, who is it? Oh, thank God.
合いびきならもう少し色気のある場所を選んだ方がいいんじゃねえか。また
お前たちか。田舎の犬は目端だけは聞くと見える。
それはこちらのセリフだ。
Harada! Saito! My legs almost collapsed, as if the now shattered tension was the only thing keeping me standing. I teetered backwards, my balance momentarily lost. A strong, sinewy hand caught me and pulled me back, its grip hard as steel. Hijikata! One hand guided me from around behind him, even as the other drew his sword.
将軍の首でも取りに来たかと思えば、こんなガキ一人に一体何の用？
将軍の貴様らも今はどうでもいい。俺は我ら鬼の問題だ。
鬼だと。
His eyes narrowed. Hijikata seemed perplexed by Kazuma's statement, as if contemplating the possibility of its truth.
こいつの面を拝むのは金門の変以来だ。
腐れんってとこか？大して嬉しくもねえがな。
再会という意味ではこちらも同じくだ。
我々の邪魔立てをするつもりですか？ならば。
The tension was so thick in the air that I could scarcely breathe. They were a powder keg ready to explode. Even though the slightest movement could set them off, it wasn't like I could do much. But I still wanted to help them, so I grabbed my sword. Please do not do anything. Yamazaki, when did you... Then you're telling me to run away? Yes, run away! We are useless! We are useless! I mean, he may be right, but... We go back to headquarters. We go back to headquarters. Even as I ran back to headquarters with Yamazaki, I couldn't shake the fear in my heart. When I finally got to the compounds, I still felt nervous, and I could do nothing but stare into the blank darkness behind me. But...
不安なところ申し訳ないが、俺は副長たちのところへ戻らなくてはならない。皆将軍校の警護に出ているから、今の屯所に 大使はほとんど残っていない。沖田さんか東堂さんのところにいるのがいいだろう。
Alright, and then we chose Okita. Alright, understood.
では、後のことは頼んだぞ。
With that, he disappeared back into the darkness. Suddenly, the night felt very quiet. The word demon echoed through my head, and their faces floated in front of my eyes. I shook my head. As the temple came back into focus, I felt very, very alone. As Yamazaki said, I should go find Okita or Heisuke. Whom should I look for? Okita!
あれ
Okita looked up from cleaning his sword as I entered the hall.
二条城に行ってるんじゃなかったっけ？どうしたの？一人で。
Well,
あ、わかった。さては何か失敗して土方さんに追い返されたんでし
no,
ょ？
not that kind of trouble. Yeah, something like that.
あのさ、そんな引きつった顔で返事されても全然からかいがいがないんだけど、何があったのか聞かせてくれるかな？
Well, still feeling upset, I told Okita about the incident that unfolded in Nijo Castle. The minute I mentioned Kazuma's names, Okita's eyes lit up.
へえ、そうなの。風間千景。あいつが来てたんだ。あいつらが来るって分かってれば、意地でも言ったんだけどな。
What? Of course he could have. No, you're sick. He just have to told you to rest.
うるさいな。そもそも君が悪いんじゃない。君にもらった薬、全然効か。
Can we not? Okay, there it is. There it is. There it is. There it is. They're really sick. Give him the tuberculosis. For just a moment, all colors but one faded away. I forgot about demons and castles upon seeing one thing: the sickly red splatter across Okita's hands and mouth. Are you okay? I'll go get someone. Heisuke?
ダメだ!
His voice was rough and strained, but filled with unexpected rage. He wiped the blood from his mouth and glared at me over the top of his hand. From under his bangs, his eyes, burning with anger, nailed me to the floor.
今見たことは忘れて。大丈夫。
Biggest
た
liar.
だ喉が傷ついただけだよ。
Back when I was in Edo, I was helping my father out at his clinic. There were a few times where I seen patients who coughed up blood from coughing too much. But what I just saw was something else. Okita?
聞こえなかった。忘れろって言ったでしょ。
He was so adamant about me not helping him, so it was difficult to know how to react. What could I tell him? Well, we can't tell him. Alright, we won't tell anyone, dude. I won't tell anyone. But please, for me, just go get some rest today. Please?
ありがとう。それに、今から二条城に行っても間に合わないだろうしね。ほんと、間が悪いな。
He grumbled and complained like a child, but before long, I convinced him to lay down and rest. The words of the men who claimed to be demons lingered in my heart. There were so many things for me to be worried about. However, more than any of that, I was just worried about the man sick in front of me. I continued to eye Okita, who slept with his back faced towards me as I watched the dawn slowly emerge through the long, cold night. Since then, once the men returned, there was a meeting among the captains. The subject of the meeting was the three men at the Nijo Castle: Chikage Kazuma, Kyuju Amagiri, and Kyo Shiranui. They called themselves demons, and their previous encounters with the Shinsengumi suggested they were somehow involved with the Satsuma and Choshu. The Satsuma were the most powerful domain and the opposite domain, and the Choshu are publicly expressive of their distance towards the shogunate. The Choshu are essentially enemies of the court. I don't know how the three men are supposedly affiliated with the domains, but it was abundantly clear they are not to be dealt with carelessly. There is another problem, however. Why had they come for me? They said I was one of them and knew about my family name and my kodachi. But how? My name is Lari Yukimura. I am the daughter of my father and my mother. I am a normal girl, nothing out of the ordinary. But who am I? You about to do some soul searching? Alright, about a month later, we're in June now. June 1864. The compound was alive with noise and movement. I passed several soldiers in the halls, each one of them excited about something. What was going on? Did they kick him out? Did they kick him out? Ito, is something wrong? Bro, did they kick Ito out?
私がなんであんな野蛮人どもと同じ部屋で肌をさらさなくてはならないの?
Oh, is it where he's sleeping? Ito's explanation was useless. I was completely confused. Bare his skin with savages. Is it like bathing? Is he in the same bathing room as people he doesn't like? Is there something going on today? Ito did his best to collect himself, shakily adjusting his hair and clothing before he spoke.
将軍上洛の時に近藤さんと意気投合したお医者様が屯所にいらしてるんだ。
Oh!
大使たちの健康診断を行うとかの名目で。
Ah. With a disdainful sniff, he glared pointedly across the hall towards the area he just left. Ah, for the physical, he doesn't want to be around everyone else. The men were getting physical checkups, that much I knew. Given my peculiar situation, I've been exempted by the captains, who also gave me special instructions to stay away.
Oh,
thank you for the raid! Welcome, welcome, everyone! Let me get the shout out. I can't remember how to do that. Hold on. Shout. Sa. Mo. Di. Uno. I hope I did that right. Did I spell that right? Yes, I did! Welcome, welcome, Raiders, and thank you for the raid again, Kazamori. I hope your stream was great. You played Code Vein. I actually heard that's really good and that people spend hours upon hours just in the character creation. I hope everyone had fun. Welcome, everyone. I'm Lottie, your local magical girl with the gacha addiction, just a slight gacha addiction. I like ikemen and their titties, like just plush titties I can just lay on. We're currently playing Hakuoki Kyoto Wins. We are going through Okita's route. And Okita has threatened to kill us quite a few times, but we love that in an anime guy, honestly.
皆の前で私に着物を脱げとおっしゃるのよ。拒んだら無理やり脱がせようとするし。
Oh yeah, and this is Ito, and we don't like Ito. He's a sneaky snake, and he insults our favorite guy, Sandan. So we all hate this man with everything we have.
それに、あの大使たちの態度、まるで野獣みたいでしたわ。
Savages seems a bit strong. At any rate, perhaps I should go see just what a physical entailed. I was a doctor's daughter after all. What's this doctor's name?
確か松本良順とか言ったかしら。
Huh? We know him! Wait, Dr. Matsumoto?
何よその反応。知り合いなの?
When I first came to Kyoto, my plan was to find Dr. Matsumoto. My father told me that I could rely on the man if I ever needed anything. Unfortunately, he was away on business when I'd arrived, and after that... I'm going to go watch the physical exams! There was no time to waste. I mean, kinda. Is this it? I could hear loud voices from inside. If we open the door and it's just a whole bunch of naked men, I would be very happy. Oh, Oh. The scene froze here, please. No wonder.
次の人。
No wonder they said don't go in.
おう、俺の番だな。一丁頼みます先生。
Check what out.
どうすか。剣術一筋で期待に
Oh my
鍛え
god.
たこの
This is the
体。
content we all came for. This two right here. They could be a bit bigger, but they're pretty nice. Yes?
You still alive?
Yes, I'm still alive.
新八さんの場合、体は頑丈だもん。見てもらうのは頭の方だよな。
ああ、余計なこと言ってると締めるぞヘスケ。
うん、長倉新八と。よし、問題ない。次。
先生、もっとちゃんと見てくれよ。
He really said, okay, you're good, and walked along. He really said, look at my muscles, though.
いやいや、申し分ない健康体だ。
I'm so sorry. Nagakura.
新八、後ろが使えてるんだからさっさと
Look
終
at
わら
them
せ
in
ろ
the
って。
back waiting.
そうじゃなくってよ。もっと他に見るところがあんだろ。
He really wants someone to stare at his muscles. I would, sir.
鍛え抜かれた鋼のようなこの筋肉とか、仁王像みたいに屈強そうな体型とか。
I gotta print screen that. Don't you want to order a slice of this beefcake? I got 2 meaty servings on a plate right here.
診察は見てもらうものであって見せつけるものではない。
Oh my god, no. It wasn't difficult to see why Ito was desperate to escape. I couldn't imagine him as part of such a display. That was honestly pretty funny. I like little scenes like that. Even though this game has some serious moments, these cute little scenes do help a bit. What should I do? I feel like it's rude to intrude.
雪村君、こんなところでどうかしたのか?
Oh, Yamazaki. Hello, I heard that Dr. Matsumoto was here. Yamazaki didn't look like he was in the mood to tolerate my snooping, so he went to the point.
なるほど。松本先生に何か話があるようだな。君のことはある程度聞いている。事情はおおよそ分かった。だが、診察がなかなか終わらないようだ。俺に任せてくれるか?
What should I do? Yes, please. Well, you can take care of it. Are you sure? Then yes, please do so.
分かった。少し待っていてくれ。
Yamazaki went over to Dr. Matsumoto.
松本先生、軽い症状のものなら俺が代わりに見ます。そろそろ休憩してはどうですか?
ではそうさせてもらおうか。
I waited outside for Dr. Matsumoto until he stepped out of the examination room. Excuse me? He looked at me for a moment, his eyes narrowed in curiosity.
薬の補充も兼ねて休憩にしようか。君、ちょっと手
Kenny!
伝って。
Welcome, welcome! Thanks for stopping by. We're playing Hakuoki. And you literally just missed the best scene of Nagakura sitting here trying to show off his pecs to the doctor who was examining him and saying, do you want a slice of this beefcake? He legit called himself a beefcake and said he had 2 helping servings, talking about each of his titties. Oh, yes, of course. What luck. Dr. Matsumoto.
松本先生、雪村君。
Kondo. Oh, hi, Kondo.
おお、早速会えたようだな。
はい、おかげさまで。
Huh? I was utterly lost. Dr. Matsumoto laid a gentle hand on my shoulder.
私は君に会うためにここに来たんだよ。
Oh!
高堂さんの娘さんがここに身を寄せていると近藤さんが教えてくれたんだ。
Oh, I see.
高堂さんと松本先生が懇意にしていたことは俺も知っていたからな。何か高堂さんの手がかりになればと思い、松本先生が今日に戻ってすぐに連絡を取った。
The Shinsengumi had their own reasons for wanting my father found, but Dr. Matsumoto's appearance was still a cause for joy. Thank you, both of you. They smiled. Dr. Masimoto then explained he had just barely missed me when he left for Edo as I came to Kyoto. He received all my letters, but once he finally returned, he had no idea where I was, and consequently couldn't find me.
すれ違いだったとはいえ、辛い思いをさせてしまったようだ。君がここにいる事情は分かっておるよ。何か不自由なことはないかね。
No, I'm doing all right. So, Dr. Matsumoto, about my father. His face took on a grim cast, and before even I spoke, I knew what his response would be.
残念ながら、私もコードーさんの居場所は知らないんだ。
And there we are to nowhere. I see. The defeated tone of my voice surprised me. I suppose, on some level, I believed Dr. Matsumoto had some miraculous revelation about my father. Foolish of me, of course, but that didn't make the truth any less devastating. Kondo simply nodded.
君はここにいることで、あの薬に関わってしまったようだね。あの薬。つまりコードーさんが新選組で行っていた研究のことについてだが。
Yes, I knew what he meant. The experiments my father conducted with some strange concoction that could make people go mad. Please tell me about it. I want to know everything my father was doing. He nodded.
コードーさんが幕命を受け、新選組で行っていたのは、羅刹を生み出す実験だった。羅刹とはすなわち、鬼神のごとき力と驚異的な治癒能力を持つ人間のことだ。
Furies? This term seemed familiar. Then I realized I overheard some of the men talking about it.
そうじ。めったなこと言うもんじゃねえ。幹部が羅刹になってどうするんだよ。
ああ、羅刹ってのは薬を飲んだら怪我も治っちまう。
羅刹っていうのはかわいそうな子たちのことだよ。
そしてその羅刹を生み出したのは落ち水という薬だ。これは西洋ではエリクサー、中華では先端と呼ばれるものに値する。つまるところ、不老不死の霊薬みたいなものだ。
Furies? Water of life? It sounded more like something from a fairy tale rather than real life. But there was something in Dr. Matsumoto's tone of voice that said he was telling the truth. I've already heard about how it makes you strong and hard to kill, but doesn't it cause so much pain that it makes most people go crazy? And even if you survive that, then even the smell of blood can make you go crazy again. Dr. Matsumoto nodded slowly, then pinched the bridge of his nose with his thumb and forefinger. He looked very tired. Yes. They were human, but not human. Perhaps they're almost entirely different now. I couldn't see how this water of life could ever be used for good. Even if it had healed Sanan's arm, he suffered greatly in the process. Why? It sounded more like a moan than a question. My father would never want to ruin the life of another, but because of what he'd done, people suffered and some even died. Why was my father doing this? But it wasn't just my father. I was sure no one involved expected such a terrible outcome.
だからこそ、両親の呵責に耐えかねたコードーさんはここを去ったんだろ
う。しかし、あれは幕府が新選組の人材不足を補うために授けてくださった知恵でもあるのです。
The doctor only shook his head.
あの計画は失敗だ。行わない方がいい。幕府も見切りをつけているはずだ。
Kondo frowned, perhaps unhappy that Dr. Matsumoto would question the shogunate's original decision.
あの薬を飲んだ大使たちがどうなったか、近藤さんもよく知ってるだろう。あの計画は人道的に決して許されるもんじゃない。
Please, Kondo. Kondo gave a non-committal grunt and fell silent. I was sure Kondo knew just how dangerous it was to use the life of water, but the shogunate had come to him with a request. Perhaps he couldn't refuse, even if he wanted to. Silence fell like a thick blanket.
たとえ将軍校の御殿医を務めておられる方のお言葉といえど、大使でもない方に口を差し挟まれる筋合いはありません。
Sanan? His face was pale as moonlight, as if he was a walking corpse. Is it okay for you to be up right now?
三男君、休んでいた方がいいのではないか。顔色が悪いぞ。
ご心配なく。
He bowed quickly, his mouth compressed a line, and turned to regard the doctor with a cool gaze.
我々は我々の裁量で例の薬を有効に活用させていただいています。
しかし危険だ。あの薬は人が扱えるような代物じゃない。
研究は続いています。そしてこの私という成功例もあります。
As Sanan did indeed prove, it was possible to drink the water of life and retain your sanity. It just wasn't easy.
一見平気そうに見えるかもしれんが、体のどこかに相当無理をかけていることも考えられるぞ。
私は至って健康ですよ。今後も研究と改良を重ねれば薬の質が上がるのは明白です。
そのためにさらに多くの大使を犠牲にするつもりかね。成功するかどうかもわからん実験に大使を付き合わせるのは生命を冒涜しているとしか思えん。
Oh, here we go, the butting of heads with different ideals.
彼らは我々の礎となったのです。無駄死にではありません。
しかしだな。
まあまあ、松本先生も三男君も落ち着いて。この話は後日改めてということにしないか。
It was my private opinion that they were unlikely to agree, no matter what time they discussed the subject, but I felt it was a polite to keep quiet.
そうだな。わかった。
There seemed to be very little common ground between them, but both arguments had merit. Kondo had likely seen this as well, and he chose to end things before it got unpleasant.
近藤さんがそうおっしゃるのであれば。
Sanan's face betrayed nothing of what he might be thinking, even when the corner of his mouth quirked up into the beginning of a smile. He bowed quickly and left as swiftly as he arrived.
そういえば先生、健康診断の方はどうでしたかな。
ああ、それなんだがな。頭を抱えたよ。
え、それは一体なぜ？
Everyone's stupid.
なぜも何も。怪我人や病人を合計したら全大使の3分の1近くになるじゃないか。
Oh, that too. What?
なんと。
なんとじゃないぞ、近藤さん。あんたらは今まで何をやってたんだ。
Ooh, Kondo's getting reprimanded?
切り傷から渋り腹まで。この豚書は病の見本市だぞ。
There's lice? Oh my god, these guys can't even take care of themselves. We're infected with lice?
面目ない。まさかそんなことになっていたとは。
Oh my god, the Shinseikumi can't take care of themselves.
まずは病室を用意して、そこに病人を運び込んでくれ。
Oh my god, I'm dying. They can't even take care of themselves, and there's a lice
それ
infection.
から、豚書を清潔にしてもらわんと話にならん。
承知しました。すぐに取り掛かります。
Oh my god, there's a damn lice infection. They're so gross. So, we were ordered to clean the entire compound.
たく、なんなんだよ、大掃除って。
It's for your health.
俺は掃除とか整理整頓がこの世で一番嫌いなのによ。
ぐちゃぐちゃ言ってないで、さっさとそこのタンスを持ち上げてくれって。散々自慢してた体力を披露するいい機会だ。
Those meat cakes.
うわー、ネズミが出た。
落ち着け。大事はない。どうやらそこにある握り飯を餌にしていたようだな。
本当だ。誰だよ、食い残しの握り飯をこんなとこ
Oh
ろに
my
隠してた
god,
や
they're
つ。
so gross. Who hides food in the wall?
まったく。なぜ私がこのような雑用に駆り出されなければならんのだ。そもそも私は軍略が専門だというのに。
いいじゃねえか。 いつも自慢してる甲州流なんちゃらでパパッと終わらせてくれよ。
黙れ。私の甲州流軍学はこのようなくだらぬ役目のためにあるものではない。
原田も人が悪いな。こいつが盲信してる時代遅れの兵法なんて。
Yo, is it saying he's incompetent? He's too incompetent to clean?
ミキ君、言葉に気をつけたまえ。確かに洋楽には劣るかもしれんが、甲州流軍学は決して時代遅れではなく。
お、近藤さんだ。
近藤局長、ご覧ください。先ほどまで足の踏み場もないほどだった部屋が
The way he's sucking up to him.
局長は
Takada realized Kondo was nowhere to be seen, and he glared at Harada. They played him like a fool.
原田、貴様、測ったな。
ぶつくさ文句言ったり、ペコペコしたり、怒ったり。忙しいな、あんたも。そうやって相手によってコロコロ態度変えてて、疲れねえか。
Hi everyone, wash the rags. Please use this when you wipe the floors.
ありがとよ。
Despite being upset because of chore duty, the men swiftly cleaned the room as a team. Dr. Matsumoto came to the next day to inspect the cleanliness of the compounds.
まあまあ綺麗になったじゃないか。
だろ？この筋肉は飾りじゃねって先生もようやく分かってくれたみてえだな。
人を動かすという点に関しては軍略も掃除もさして変わりませぬゆえ。
あんた文句言ってただけだろう
が。でも掃除は一日休んでたんだろ。ずるいよな、みんな頑張ってる時に。
しょうがないじゃない。土方さんが過保護なんだから。
お前が変な咳するからだろうが。養生しねえからいつまでも治らねえんだよ。
しかしやはりこうして片付いていると気分がいいものです。
まあな、見違えたもんだ。これはこれで悪くね
え。よし、これからは毎日掃除するか。
Every day.
おう、頼んだぜ、ヘイスケ。
なんで俺だけなんだよ。体力自慢の新発さんが真っ先に働くべきだろ。
I'll help too, Heisuke.
そっか。そんじゃ明日から二人で頑張ろうな。
We don't need
新発さんなんて放っておいて。
おいおい、ちょっと待てって。誰もやらねえとは言ってねえだろ。
お、そこにまだゴミがあるじゃねえか。ちょうどいい。捨ててこい、新八。い
や、だから明日からだろ。なあ、ヘイスケ。
片付けたそばから暴れるな。誇りが立つ。
I was enjoying the banter when I noticed something. Oh. I could just see Okita and Dr. Matsumoto outside, walking off somewhere together. Is this when he tells them he got tuberculosis? Where could they be going, I wondered. And we're going to be nosy and we're worried about Okita. What were Okita and Dr. Matsumoto doing? Was Okita going to talk to the doctor about his cough? He was coughing an awful lot lately, now that I thought about it. Was he alright? I decided to follow them. Huh? Unfortunately, I waited too long, and by the time I made my way outside, they were gone. I think they went this way?
おや、雪村君、誰かを探しているんですか？
Shimada, have you seen Okita and the doctor?
沖田君たちなら中庭の方に行ったようですが。
Thank you.
急ぎすぎて転ばないよう気をつけてください。それでは、俺はこれで。
Yes, goodbye. I saw him walk off and it got me thinking. The courtyard. Should I try and catch up? Or should I go around the back to reach the courtyard before they did? And we catch up. Catch up? Yeah, we catch up. I figured my best course of action was to follow them and hope I could catch up. And there they were. Just like Shimada had said. I could see Okita and the doctor sitting on a bench, talking. Their expressions were grim, so I kept my distance and hid as well as I could. Eavesdropping was not something I was proud of, but I had a terrible feeling about Okita. There it goes! For a second, my heart stopped. A shiver ran down my spine, and I suddenly felt very, very cold. Did he just say...
なんだやっぱりあの有名な死病ですか
Can we not? Okita has... Oh, and he kind of knew about it.
そりゃただの風邪がこんなに長引くはずもないですしね
Okita has tuberculosis? It was all I could do is keep from screaming. My whole body shook.
でも面と向かって言われるとさすがに困ったな
笑い事ではなかろ
うこれでも困ってるんですけどね
老害の一番の薬は西洋だ新選組は離れて精のつくものを食べてゆっくり体を休めなきゃいかん
Oh, he's never gonna do that.
それはできません
そうせんと体は悪くなるばかりだぞ今はそうやって平気なふりができてもいずれ布団から起き上がることすらできなくなる
じゃあその時までここにいますよ血を吐きながらそれでも刀を取ります
The guy you like is stubborn as hell.
なぜそれほどまでここにいたいんだね
僕は新選組の剣ですからここにいることが僕の全てなんです新選組の前に立ちふさがる敵を切るただそれだけなんですよ
お前さんの覚悟は分かっただがなこの病は悪化すると周りの人に迷惑がかかるそれは分かるな今後は私の言いつけを守ってもらわねばならんぞもし守れんのならすぐに近藤さんに言うからな
Ooh, yeah, Kondo would legit tell him to stay out of every fight.
それってまさか苦い薬とか飲まなきゃならないんですか
当然だろうが
まあ困った人に知られちゃったな
Okita sounded cheery, but I was listening in a state of shock. Okita is going to die? My chest was tight, and breathing had become an effort. I leaned heavily against the nearby beam and struggled to hear the rest of their conversation. Matsumoto went quiet, his eyes looking off into the distance. Okita grinned and nudged him.
先生、近藤さんたちには言わないでくださいよ。約束ですからね。
Bro, we gotta pretend we don't know this too. He was quiet for a long time. At last he sighed, and his shoulders slumped. Bro, we're so nosy for no reason.
私もあの子に打ち明けていないことがあるんだ。
Bitch! He looked up at the sky for a moment.
行動さんが上位派の過激浪士連中と行動を共にしてるかもしれない。
So our dad might be a bad guy now.
とてもじゃないが伝えられんよ。
Well, the news of Okita's illness had me scattered. I almost cried out at this new piece of intelligence. My father working with the nationalists? Then Dr. Matsumoto did know something about where my father was.
世の中、ままならないものですね。
まったくだな。まあ、これからは頻繁に新選組に通ってお前さんのことを見てやる。だからくれぐれも無理はせんようにな。
分かってますよ。
I was lost in thought for a few moments, and when I finally looked up, Matsumoto was already gone. Oh, please don't tell me Okita saw us. I'm gonna cry. Okita had tuberculosis. Father was working with the man who wanted to overthrow the shogunate. My head was spinning. It was so much to take in. Just then, No! He knew we were there! Nothing is safe or sacred. Bro, we suck at this too. I suddenly heard him say my name, and I froze. Wait, did he know I was here the whole time? My heart resumed beating, but was now beating so quickly that it seemed to burst my chest.
出ておいで。もういいから。
Okita, I'm so sorry. I'm too curious for my own good. His deep eyes were looking straight towards me. So Okita had noticed I was here this whole time. I braced myself and approached him. I would be crying my eyes out and just looking at the ground.
はい、こっちこっち。
I don't want to. He grinned coolly and patted the bench next to him. I couldn't bear to look into his eyes. All right. His eyes trained purposely on the ground at my feet. I slowly lowered myself onto the bench. The silence was maddening. My head felt somehow light and heavy at the same time, as if it might sink into my stomach or float away like a balloon. The silence was unbearable, so I spoke out.
さっきの松本先生の話だけど、まさか本気にしてないよね。
Okay, so really, you can't play this off. His words were defensive, as if he needed to tell them himself that it wasn't true. I was at a loss.
あの先生、悪い冗談が好きみたいだね。こんな健康な病人がいるはずないのに。でも冗談なら冗談で、言う場所を選んで欲しかったな。ここにはこうやって根も葉もない話を本気にするおバカさんがいるんだし。
Was it really all a joke? This was a doctor who was recognized in his field by the shogun, and it's unlikely he was wrong. Even so.
君、医者の娘なんでしょ？もし僕が本当に老害だったら、もっと早くに気づいてたはずだよね。君が今まで何とも思わなかったんだから、病気じゃないんだよ。ただの誤診。
Genevieve, welcome, welcome! Welcome, welcome! Thank you for stopping by! I hope your day is going well. We're playing Hakuoki. And I was hoping they wouldn't add tuberculosis to Okita, but they always do. Anything with Okita, they add tuberculosis, because he had tuberculosis in real life, and it's so sad. I will have to be lurking, but of course I have to stop by and say hi. Thanks for stopping by! It's always happy to see familiar faces. Considering Okita's condition, I couldn't imagine trying to burst his bubble. Nothing I could say would make the situation better.
誰にも言わないよね。もし誰かに言うつもりなら、
Yeah, I
やっぱり
get it.
切らなくちゃならないかな。
Yeah, every time there's something with Okita, they always have to add the tuberculosis, and it's so sad. I was really hoping they wouldn't when he started coughing up blood and just being really sick, and I knew it was inevitable. I heard those words many times before, often delivered in a cheerful, careful tone. If I got in the way, he killed me. If I wasn't useful, he killed me. And every time I heard them, I'd been terrified by how serious he was. But this time, he only sounded sad. You say that so much, Okita. I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes. But no, this wasn't the time. With a mighty effort, I swallowed the sob building in my chest. He gave me an odd, crooked smile.
そうかもね。
He stood up. After a second's hesitation, I followed suit. Okita? For the first time since I sat down, I looked straight into his eyes.
何？
My mind was still reeling from everything I just learned, but I had to give him an answer. I won't tell anyone about your illness, I promise.
そう。ありがとう。
His smile was gentle and as honest as I ever seen from him. After he left, I stood alone in the courtyard. It was the first time Okita had thanked me for anything. By all rights, I should have been happy, ecstatic even, but instead, I felt miserable. My heart was a stone in my chest, and my stomach felt as if it had twisted itself nearly in half. Okita. A stray breeze caressed my cheek. It felt cold. Bruh, I was really hoping that I wouldn't have to live through that, but apparently I did. From then on, Matsumoto visited the compound regularly to check up on the men of the Shinsengumi. Ever since Sanan had become the leader of the Furies, the group was named as the Fury Corps. Still, I couldn't help but wonder, was it really alright to continue researching the Furies? My heart was heavy with worry. Without him, the Shinsengumi would be nothing. We would cease to exist. If so, why? Another time skip? We're in October now. Okay. After the dust cleared, following the Hamagiri rebellion, the shogunate set about cleaning house. The Choshu expedition was launched by the shogun once the Choshu domain were declared enemies of the court. Perhaps feeling they dodged a bullet, the Choshu domain fell silent for a time. Their obedience was short-lived, however, and before long, their disrespect for the shogun became impossible to ignore. In order to investigate further, the shogunate decided to send an envoy to the Choshu domain. Kondo was asked to accompany an envoy sent to the Choshu to investigate their behavior. However, the Choshu domain refused to even meet with the envoy. Fed up with their insubordination, the shogunate ordered the second Choshu expedition. However, the war was a costly one, exhausting both the resources of the men from all over the domains, whose morale began to falter. To add to the fire, word of Shogun Iemochi's passing shook all of Japan, and some domains even withdrew, which made the situation even dire. The second Choshu expedition had ended in a surprisingly major loss for the shogunate troops. October 1866. The pillar of the Tokugawa shogunate, which stood strong for 260 years, was beginning to show signs of instability. That day, I was accompanying Saito on his routes. It sure has been hot lately. I've gotten used to the city of Kyoto, but I just couldn't get used to this humid heat. I always wondered. Even in midsummer, Saito always wore his full uniform. Wasn't he hot? He kept his vigilant guard up while observing the city of Kyoto. Alright. He gave me a short nod of confirmation and stepped into the shop with his men.
先日浪人風の男が出入りしていたという噂を耳にした。戦議させてもらう。
I'd been waiting for Saito and his division for a few minutes when I noticed a commotion nearby. Rokuro. A number of rather unpleasant-looking ronin were making their way in my general direction, yelling, threatening, and intimidating anyone unfortunate enough to cross their path. Patriots? Hardly. Perhaps they consider themselves loyal to the imperial court, but they look like the sort who only use their supposed patriotism as an excuse to steal and kill. The ronin tossed a poorly aimed kick at a child playing in the street. What should I do? It seemed like the warriors were preoccupied with their investigation in the store. Just as I was about to stop the ronin.
やめなさいよ、みっともない。
あ？なんだてめえは。たかが女が俺たち勤王の志士に意見するってのか。
そのたかが女に意見されることをみっともないと思いなさいよ。今日の人がどれだけ迷惑してるのかわからないの？
The man's obvious short fuse had been lit. He made a grab for the girl and missed. I suspected his next attack wouldn't be as inaccurate. I couldn't let that happen. Wait! When I had come to my senses, I noticed that I had instinctively taken action. I had positioned myself in front of the girl, protecting her. No, I don't. Flecks of spit flew from his mouth as he roared at me, and my legs suddenly felt somewhat weaker than they had a moment ago. But I was committed. I couldn't run now. If you truly love your country, as you say, then why do you abuse a woman and children? A samurai should protect common people, not attack them.
そうだそうだ、いいぞお兄ちゃん。獅子気取りの不定老師め、今日からさっさと出ていけ。
Something about my speech must have struck a chord with the gathering crowd. With the cheers, my legs started to regain some of their usual steadiness. Oh, Saito, I'm so sorry for causing trouble. With the rough hiss of metal, the Ronin sword leapt from its scabbard. I suddenly discovered I had difficulty swallowing. I could try to dodge, but if I did, he might hit the girl my actions had intended to protect. I was about to draw my sword. Saito? Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry for causing trouble, Saito, but thank you for saving me. Slowly, carefully, I opened my eyes. Saito!
そいつを屯所に連れて行け。長州の残党かもしれん。はい。
Working quickly, Saito's men set to work binding the Ronin for transport. Saito's cold eyes follow me. I'm so sorry. I feel like a child getting scolded every time they look at me with disappointment.
何故俺を呼ばなかった。万が一のことがあったらどうするつもりだったのだ。
I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. But I couldn't help myself. I mean, what if she were to get injured? Hello? I was trying to help you, lady. A scolding from Saito was expected. I hadn't thought that my erstwhile damsel in distress would contribute. I'm sorry I made you worry. I gave her a short, slightly confused bow, to which she blinked as she suddenly remembered something very important. Oh, well, I didn't really do anything. It was Saito and his men who made the actual arrest. Huh? Saito glanced from her to me, an expression flashed across his face that I couldn't quite place. Well, I wasn't entirely sure how to respond. How does a person respond to that sort of question? She seemed to sense my confusion and gracefully moved on. Well, this is... My name is Lada Yukimura. It's nice to meet you. Her eyes grew wide as if she was surprised, and she stared intently at me. Why, yes. I was living in Edo, but I had to come to Kyoto for a certain reason. She was acting a little strange, so I tried to speak to her, and she laughed and looked up. You think so? Thank you. Our last name is now something kind of cursed, or some people know something about it that we don't.
よろしくね。私のことはセンって呼んで。
Miss Sen, nice to meet you.
なんか水臭いわね。見たところ同い年ぐらいだし、そんなにかしこまらなくていいわよ。
So just then, Sen.
まあいいわ。そう呼んでちょうだい。じゃあまた会いましょうね。
She gave my hand a gentle squeeze, then turned and left, her kimono flapping behind her. Our encounter was over before I had the chance to grasp what was even happening, and so I simply stood, stunned for a moment or two. Saito was eyeing Sen walking off, and eventually he turned toward me.
あの娘、あんたのせいが気にかかっている様子だったが。
I know, huh? She did say it was the same as her acquaintances. Well, I guess Yukimura isn't an uncommon name either. It seemed like Saito was concerned with her reaction to my name, and he was deep in thought.
予定からだいぶ遅れてしまった。そろそろ行くことにするか。
Yes. So we continued on our rounds, trying to withstand the scorching heat. The heat wave ended up lasting several days. On one such day,
雪村先輩、お茶はこんな感じでいいんでしょうか。
Yukikaishi! Kazue Soba, and he called me senpai? Oh no, we got a cute little kohai. Oh, it may be better to make them lukewarm. It's still quite hot out today, you know?
なるほど。さすがです。
Oh my god, we have a kohai. I love him. This young man is Kazue Soma. He joined the Shinsengumi just before summer began. He's very serious and respectful. Kondo supposedly met him when he was in Shoshi for the envoy, and he invited Soma to join us. Now, he currently works as Kondo's page. I guess he grew fond of the Shinsengumi, and he was focused on learning about all that it takes to become a successful warrior.
じゃあ水で薄めりゃいいんじゃないか?
Risa Budo Nomura? They're adding more guys, and I hate how Appropriato rants everyone. But if you do that, then the tea's flavor will become lighter.
そうか。なあ、相馬、どうすりゃいいんだ?
Wait, is that Eguchan? Takuya Eguchi?
井戸水で冷やしてみるのはどうだ?
おお、そいつはいいな.
It's Eguchan! Their energetic lad is Risabudo Nomura. He joined the Shinsengumi around the same time as Soma, and because of their closeness in age, Nobura became Kondo's page in training. For him, he was a huge fan of the Shinsengumi, and he joined them because of it. That left me to make sure that I teach them about all the duties and responsibilities that go into being a page, which was harder than I thought. The tea doesn't have to be room temperature, just a little cooler to offset the hot weather. So first, prepare some warm water rather than boiling hot, then try brewing it. That way, it doesn't dilute the tea's flavor.
おお、すげえ。なるほどな。先輩故障は伊達じゃないぜ。
本当に勉強になります。
Bro, I feel so enlightened. Thanks. Well, as for the tea, I'll pour some and take it to them. So you two...
俺たちは何ですか? 何でもやりますよ。
They're so eager.
ええ、何でも言ってください。
よーし、お前らは今から俺と剣術稽古だ。
R.I.P. y'all. Have fun with Nagakura.
どうした? やりたくないのか?
The way they looked at Nagakura, I wouldn't want to do that either, sir. Mr. Beefcake.
はい、お願いします。
いやー、俺はちょっと仕事が。
おいおい、新人が遠慮なんかするなよ。
野村、諦めろ。これも立派な大使になるための試練だ。
試練っていうか、あれはしごきだろ。
そんじゃあ、ちょっくら二人を借りていくぜ。
Oh, have fun, sir. Please take care of them. Please, please, please don't hurt them. Soma gulped deeply, and he looked nervous. Nomura, on the other hand, looked ready to cry as Nagakura dragged both of them off to treaty. I wish the two of them the best of luck. Bruh, can I date them too? Here's some parts barley tea, Kondo. Supposedly, it lowers the body's temperature.
ありがとう。雪村くんの入れてくれたお茶は飲みやすくてちょうどいいな。
Thank you. He was deep in thought, arms crossed and stern. Things were bad since Lord Iemuchi's death. Kondo especially was having a difficult time. Perhaps it was because if I simply left him alone, I turned and had already began to walk away when he spoke.
今、掃除を松本先生に見せてるんだ。
Did he know about Okita's illness? What did he say?
まだなんとも。重病でなければいいのだが、もし掃除の身に何かあったら、あの人に申し訳が立たんからな。
Her?
今日に来る前、掃除の姉のミツさんからくれぐれもよろしく。
He has a sister? Can we not? Oh, Okita has an older sister?
両親を早くに亡くしているから、ミツさんが
Oh, we ain't doing that shit today.
育てたんだよ。
I see. Okita seems to have been through a lot.
あいつは素直で前向きだからな。苦労したとは思っていないだろうが。
あの根性曲がりを相手にそんなことを言えるのは日の本博士といえどあんたぐらいだと思うぜ。
Oh, Hijikata.
お、トシ、どうしたんだ？一緒に麦湯でも飲むか？
いや、麦湯は別にいらねえが、三条大橋に建てられてる生殺のことを知ってるか？
ああ、知っているとも。長州の罪状を記した札のことだろう。ああ、あの生殺を引き抜いて鴨川に捨てたバカがいるらしい。無論その話は聞いている。だがその生殺は後日立て直されたんじゃなかったのか？そいつがまた引き抜かれちまったそうだ。そろそろ俺たちに声がかかるんじゃねえか？以前札が引き抜かれたのは確か夜中だったな。であれば三男君の羅刹体を使ったらどうだ？羅刹体か。何か引っかかることでもあるのか？あいつらは確かによく働いてくれるが、やりすぎなんだよ。どんな役目につけても関わったものを全て皆殺しにしてきちまう。しかもそれだけじゃ飽き足らねえ。元の形をとどめねえくらい死体をバラバラに切り刻んだりしやがる。
That's a lot of work and trouble to be keeping up with the Fury Corps if they keep on doing that.
新選組の仕業だと気づかれねえようにするためとはいえ、ありゃ、いくらなんでもやりすぎだ。新選組は人殺し集団じゃねえ。死体で遊ぶのはやめろと、いくら諌めても治らねえ。あれじゃ、辻切り連中と変わらねえ。
I felt a shiver snake down my spine as he spoke. Even after a year, I remember with terrifying clarity what I'd seen when I first arrived in Kyoto. The Furies. They behaved as if possessed by evil spirits, their swords mercifully hacking away at dead men. It hadn't been hatred or fear that drove them, but some sort of twisted amusement. I didn't think I'd ever forget the half-mad smiles each had worn.
ま、いくつか手を考えてみるか。そうだな。細かいことは都市に任せるよ。ところで、この間聞いたところによると、将軍後見職の一橋慶喜公がだな。あの人か。家康公の再来なんて言われてるそうだな。確かに頭はいいのかもしれねえが。
Before long, they started to discuss politics. I didn't understand, and I politely excused myself. I thought back on what Hijikata had said. It was true Sanan had been acting strangely, and the Fury Corps had been getting more and more violent. There was a lot on my mind, but what worried me the most was, and it would be, the Furies. Furies? Yep. Just as Hijikata had predicted, the Shinsengumi received an official request to guard the notice board at the Sanjo Ohashi Bridge. As it turned out, the vandals were 8 men from the Tosai domain. Harada and his division were well prepared and captured them when they attacked at the Kamo River. Okay. Harada was given a award by the Aizu for his service, and he took the rest of the captains to Shimabara to celebrate. I remained at the temple to eat my dinner alone, but my heart felt like a lead weight in my chest, and it chased away any appetite I might have had. What's going to happen to the Shinsengumi and the Fruity Corpse? Almost as if on cue, the door slid open and Sana stepped through. Oh, Sana, please don't kill me. I don't trust this. Oh, hello, Sana. Can I help you?
こんばんは。今日は港島原へ出かけなかったのですか?
Yes, I'm not great with drinking parties, so
なるほど。
I don't like this music. Sana nodded understanding, and his eyes beamed with color as he gazed at me. The cold, full moon was visible, and maybe it was because of the nighttime. But Sana's eyes possessed the tint of danger. Sana?
君はどう思っていますか? 例の薬、落ち水のこと。
What do you mean?
あの薬は素晴らしいと、そう思いませんか? 私が左腕を負傷し、薬を飲むことになったのも、すべてはこの薬をさらに完璧なものへと改良せしめるためだ。
Oh no, 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 no. Sanan's words slittered creepily, and I couldn't bring myself to stop staring at the floor to hide from his line of sight. His expression was so unfamiliar and nefarious, almost as if he was being possessed by something. You're so scary!
肯定してくれないのですか? あの素晴らしい薬をこの新選組に持ち込んだ高堂さんの娘の君が。
It was obvious that Sanan was not acting as his usual self.
なぜ何も言わないのです? もしや君も松本先生と同じように薬の実験をやめさせようなどと思っている。
That kind of sounds like a very, very, very vague threat towards Dr. Matsumoto. I just remembered I have some chores I need to be doing, so I'll be... Just as I was on my way out. He roughly grabbed onto my wrist and yanked me. I pulled against his grip, but he was far too strong for me to overcome. Please stop. The horrible twitching madness in his eyes was too much for me, and I screamed.
女の子の手首を掴んで何してるんですか、三男さん。
Oh, thank God.
彼女、怖がってるみたいですよ。
意見を求めていただけですよ。少々熱が入りすぎましたが。
On the other side of his glasses, Sanan's eyes returned to normal. The glint of madness was gone. While I felt relief, Sanan had walked off as the others were walking in. As I watched him walk off, I looked back to Okita and the men. It's good to see you back. You're a little earlier than I expected, though. I was expecting you guys to come back way later.
佐野さんと新八さんは朝まで帰ってこねえと思うぜ。さすがに俺は体力が持たなさそうなんで途中で抜けてきたけどさ。
Stick in the woods? Then it's only just the three of you? What's the matter? Is he drunk?
土方さんは住谷にいた君菊って芸妓さんに気に入られたみたいだぜ。宴会の最中ずっと隣にくっつかれてたからな。
Kimi Giku?
ああ、すっげえ綺麗な人だったぜ。
そんなに綺麗だったっけ？
綺麗だったって。つうかあんな高そうな人呼んじまった佐野さんの懐が心
Oh, I
配だよ。
forgot. Oh, I forgot.
そう、僕、女の人の良し悪しってよくわからないな。
One of Kyoto's Geiji, huh? She was probably just as beautiful as Heisuke said. They must have made a beautiful couple. I gazed out at myself, small, plain, and dressed like a boy. Suddenly, I felt very sad.
どうかしたのか暗い顔をしているようだが
Oh, no, it's nothing.
疲れているようだなそろそろ我々は出た方が良さそうだそれではな雪村
I will, thank you. Saito must have been looking out for me. As Heisuke began to leave my room, something brought him to an abrupt halt and he turned to me.
まあ、三男さんの様子、近頃ますますおかしくなってねえか。
The two were silent, restrained by mixed emotions. Eventually, they both left the room. Even the captains who were with the Shinsengumi since Edo were beginning to grow suspicious of Asanan. I wonder what's going to happen from now on. After that, the rest of the warriors who gone to Shimabura returned, and they told me in great detail about the Sanjo notice board incident, but out of everything I heard, there was one thing in particular that caught my attention. They told me that when Harada and his men had been attacked at Sanjo Ohashi, one of them had seen someone who looked a lot like me. This strange person had tried to impede the Shinsengumi and sided with the vandals from the Tosai domain. I hadn't left the temple, of course, and even if I had been at Sanjo Ohashi, I would never have tried to get in the Shinsengumi's way. But if it wasn't me, then who? What could it mean? This news only fed the anxiety that had been slowly building within me. Are you gonna find out we were cloned or something? Is that possible here? And another year has passed. December 1866. I was sweeping a section of the compound despite being nearly frozen to the bone. Well, that should do it. I wanted to help out as much as I could, but since they refused to let me out without an escort, there wasn't a great deal I could do. Still, I helped clean our home, and that felt good. Hopefully, they liked it too.
お、境内を掃除してくれていたのか。助かるな。
Oh, hello, Kondo. It's really gotten cold lately, hasn't it?
今日に来てからずいぶん経つが、この寒さにはどうもなれんな。
He rubbed his hands together and blew on them, in a mostly vain attempt to warm them up. I picked up a bunch of dead leaves, so I was thinking about roasting potatoes later. Would you like some? They'll definitely warm you up. Kondo gave me a little wry smile.
焼き芋か。昔はよくやったもんな。
Oh? I flushed with embarrassment. Kondo was a busy man. As management of the Shinsengumi was not easy, a man like that didn't have time for roasting potatoes. You've been really busy lately. I hope you're taking care of yourself.
まあ、こういう時代だからな。忙しいってことは、それだけ新選組が頼りにされてるってことだ。名誉なことさ。
True. In the last several weeks, Kondo and Hijikata had left the temple often to go meet with important shogunate officials. They scarcely had time to breathe, let alone relax. At the moment, almost as if my thoughts had summoned him, Hijikata appeared.
お、近藤さん、こんなところにいたのか。
おお、トシ、どこに行ってたんだ。探したぞ。次の将軍がだな。家持将軍の後見人だった一橋慶喜公に決まったようだ。
やっぱりあの人に決まったか。他にやる人なんざいねえんだから、もったいぶらずにさっさと引き受けりゃいいのによ。
トシ、将軍公になられた方に向かってその言い方はないだろう。あの方は東照神君家康公の再来と呼ばれるほど英明な方なんだぞ。
まあいい。将軍が誰になろうが、俺たちはその将軍の下で戦うだけだ。
そうだな。俺たちが頑張れば それだけ将軍公も徳川幕府も安泰ってわけだ。
Only 20 days after Lord Yoshinobu had been officially inaugurated as the new shogun, the emperor suddenly passes away. Jesus! It was especially hard on the emperor's sister, Kazunomiya, who had been married to Lord Iemuchi. It was intended to be a symbol of the imperial unification, but everyone on both sides was shocked by his death. He was succeeded by the imperial prince, a young boy of only 15 years. In the turmoil, the activities of the Choshi domain went uninvestigated. The entire country of Japan found itself thrust into rapid motion. Jesus, man! A lot of stuff is just happening. And we're skipping to March. Okay. March 1864. With the beginning of the new year came the end of Kyoto's harsh, freezing winter. A bright sun shone in the sky, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the warmth of its rays. There is no question, it was a beautiful afternoon.
おお、雪村くん。今日はいい天気だな。
There you are. I hurried over toward him. Oh, hello, Inoue. Are you here with Kondo?
ああ、ちょっと境内をぐるりと散歩してきたのさ。
本当は外に出たいんだが、勝手に豚舎を離れてしまっては、都市が怒るだろうからな。
You're probably right. He sounded so adorable when he said that. I couldn't help but laugh.
おう、ところで雪村くんはどうして境内にいるんだ？
掃除か何かをしているようには見えないんだが。
Right, Hijikate sent me to find you, Kondo.
なんと、手間をかけたな。都市は何か言っていたか？俺にどんな用があるだとか。
No, he didn't. I shook my head and Kondo frowned slightly in thought.
まさか、掃除のことじゃないだろうが。
My heart jumped.
掃除のこと？何かやらかしたのかい？
そうじゃないんだが、最近調子が悪いだろう。
Soji's dying. Okita's dying, y'all.
風邪も長引いているようだし、都市が気にしているらしくてな。
Y'all, at this point, you know it's not just a regular cold, right?
はは。トシさんは心配性なところがあるからな。
I didn't feel right trying to assert myself in the conversation, so I kept my mouth shut and listened. Okita didn't have a cold. He had tuberculosis. How many people even knew the truth? Was I really the only person in his confidence, however accidental?
まあ、とにかく行ってみるか。伝えてくれてありがとう、雪村くん。
Oh, I guess I'll be going back to my room then.
ご苦労様、雪村くん。
I bowed to both of them, turned around, and headed back. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts as I made my way to my room. Then out of nowhere...
あれ？こんなところでどうしたの？
Huh? My head snapped up at the sound of his voice. I spun around to see him sitting on steps looking at me. But there was something that caught my attention. Don't show me that. His hair is down! Hello? Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Sexy.
どうかしたの？僕がここにいると。
Your hair is down.
そんな顔されると心外かな。僕がお化けか何かみたいだし。
He tilted his head back and laughed, his hair blowing softly in the breeze. It was a very different sort of look for him, which was enough to unbalance me, but it was also quite clear he'd just come from a bath. Why are you outside dressed like that? And your hair is wet.
今日は珍しく暖かいし、日向ぼっこも悪くないよ。
But aren't you still sick?
うん。おかげさまで熱はちゃんと下がったみたい。
That doesn't mean it's okay for you to...
寝てる間に汗かいちゃったし、さっき一風呂浴びてきたんだ。そしたら涼みたくなって、ここに腰を落ち着けたところ。
I don't care how nice the weather is, it's still March. You're going to give yourself another cold.
ねえ、君って意外と口うるさくて、しかも変に心配性で、土方さんみたいだね。
I wasn't quite sure what to say to that, although I was beginning to understand how Hijikata likely felt. What are you doing? He looked up, already halfway through tying back his still damp hair. You have to dry your hair or your head's going to get cold. I grabbed his towel and began to scrub his head. Sir, you are sick. You got tuberculosis. Well, I don't think I always am. I'm probably pushy because I'm dealing with you.
君ってこんな子だっけ？もっとおとなしかった気がするんだけど。
I grounded my teeth. He knew he was sick, but he wasn't taking care of himself at all.
もういいよ。ほとんど乾いたみたいだし。
Hey! He ducked out from under my hands and quickly tied up his hair. I stared at him, at loss for his words. He frowned a little and turned away.
いきなり黙り込まれたら反応に困るんだけど。まだ文句が言い足りない？それとも僕に用でもある？
No, that's not what I meant. I was just thinking that you're pretty good with your hands. You tied your hair up so quickly.
別に器用でもないと思うよ。ただ慣れてるだけじゃないかな。この髪型に結い上げるのだって何度練習したかわからないし。
He stopped mid-sentence and turned to stare at me. What's wrong?
ちょっといい？一つ質問したいんだけど。
Oh?
うん。別に深い意味はないから気楽に答えてくれて大丈夫。あのさ、僕の髪型、どう思う？
What? It was the last thing I could ever imagine hearing from Okita, or any of the captains for that matter. But he looked seriously, so I did my best to answer his question. I think it looks good. I don't know how to quite explain it, but it's just you.
そっか。よかった。ありがとう。
No problem? I felt myself blush at his smile. Just calling it like I see it. I don't think you really need to thank me for that.
でも嬉しかったからお礼を言いたくなったんだよ。
God, I hate him and love him at the same time.
お礼ついでに僕の秘密も教えてあげちゃおうかな。
Huh? Oh?
僕の髪型って近藤さんの真似。
Oh, that's so sweet. He looked somewhere half between proud and embarrassed. Yeah, I didn't realize before, but it does look like his.
他の人には言わないでよ。絶対からかわれ
That's
るだ
so
ろうし。
cute. Okay, sure. I wasn't used to seeing Okita so relaxed and easygoing. Perhaps he wasn't quite as cruel as I'd originally thought. The nervous feeling in my stomach that he usually caused was nowhere to be found. I'm sorry for bothering you like that. I'll just go back to my room. I spun around and walked away as quickly as I could. I had climbed the stairs, and it was on my way down the hallway when... I turned around to see him walking down the hall. He looked around furtively to see if anyone else was within earshot, then leaned in.
君、僕の体のこと誰にも言ってないみたいだね。
Yes, of course. I promised.
君が意外にも律儀な子だからちょっとびっくりしたよ。僕に義理立てする必要なんてどこにもないのに。
He looked almost sad. I didn't keep my promise because I felt like I owed you. I looked at him straight in the eyes as I said that. I mean, if I tell anyone, you'll kill me, right? I don't want to die, so I'll never tell anyone. Your secret's safe. His eyes narrowed, and for a few moments he just looked at me.
そういう約束だったね。余計なことを言ってみんなを混乱させたら殺すからって。じゃあ君が死にたくないなら秘密は秘密のままに。
I know I will, but I chose my words carefully. I know you're not doing this just to be stubborn, but if you want to do the things you want to do, you have to take care of yourself, please.
さっきから気になってたんだけど、どうして君が僕を心配するの？
I mean, to be honest, I'm not really sure. There is no avoiding that he was a frightening man, and indeed often cruel one as well. But I still found myself wanting desperately for him to live. I couldn't tell if it was just pity or something else.
よくわからない子だな。君って本当に。
Suddenly, his voice seemed to choke itself, and he hunched forward. Okita? His body shook with each cough, and I ran towards him. But he shoved my hands away.
勝手に触らないでくれる。僕は別に大丈夫なんだから。
But he turned away and stalked off down the hallway. I swear to God, Okita, I'm trying to take care of you. It was easy to forget the disease that was even now eating away at Okita's body. He was, in all appearances, in fine health. The easy ignorance, however, was what made the reminders of a condition all more painful. I felt my hands tighten into fists as I stood there in the hallway, alone and helpless. Jesus. Hey, we finished another chapter! Alright. Let me, once that goes away, I'll save. Is that Heisuke? Yeah, that's Heisuke. Heisuke CG? So let me save, and I think that's actually it for the day. Hold on. There we go. We could have been done much more quicker if I had not looked at the wrong walkthrough, but it's totally fine. Make sure save one more time. Alright, so we're beginning chapter 4 next time. And thank you everyone who stopped by. I always have fun talking about anime guys with everyone. Hopefully everyone has a wonderful day. You can either catch me Twitter, Discord, probably just those two places. But I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys all later. Bye!